like fourth quarter, 6 minute lead, and he takes over. 6 minutes, I should say, and he takes over like 8 FG.
Good morning. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting now. If you could take your seats. Good morning, everyone. It's March 13th, 2025. I'm going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on our agenda always is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would stand with me, face the flag, and Mr. Butler will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. Bergeron is on his way. He'll be here shortly. Vice Chair Wagner, Mr. Martinez, Ms. Meads, Colonel Roman, and Mr. Steinle are all participating remotely. I'm assuming you guys are all on, so I'm not going to call on you right now. We will when we get voting. Board members, I'm going to ask that you make sure your microphone is on and that you please speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. And members of the public on Zoom who wish to address the board, you can use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We'll take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, followed by those who raised their hands on Zoom. And now we're going to move to employee recognitions with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a few of them today. So, our March 2025 Employee of the Month is Jose Esquivel, Section Leader in the Contracts Procurement Bureau. So, Jose joined us in 2017 and quickly became a leader within the procurement area with the timely and cost-effective acquisition of all of our goods and services at the Water Management District. He's got a supervisory role, but that doesn't mean he doesn't also manage contracts. He does them for our restoration efforts, our regulatory efforts, our administrative group, our general counsel, and our resiliency group. We have lots of contracts and procurements here at the South Florida Water Management District. He is a certified professional procurement officer and has other national and Florida-related certifications. But why he's our Employee of the Month is that he's got a keen eye for cost savings. And when you're in procurement, you can see a lot. So he has been there, and over his recent years, he has saved us $10 million as a result of competitive solicitations and contract negotiations. $10 million. He's earned his salary, I would say. His team executed 222 new contracts in fiscal year 23-24, where all those savings came from. And you know, if you've ever worked with Jose, you know he is like a consummate professional. People trust him, they respect him, they listen to him, both inside the department and the district and externally, because he's not only fun to work with, but he gets things done for us at the agency. But what he really gets done is he saves us money, so that $10 million can be put to other good work. And so that's why Jose is our March Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Jose. All right, our March 2025 Team of the Month is the Tamiami Trail Real Estate Team, which consists of Sandra Brooks Wallace, Megan Gilliland, Brian McEachern, Alexa Minash, Savannah Middlebush, Mindy Parrott, Stanley Pry, Armando Ramirez, Leslie Waugh, and Marcy Zender. Now, Tamiami Trail and real estate, that is a complex situation. And this team needed to certify the lands for the Corps' construction project for the S356 East pump station, which is right on Tamiami Trail. And so what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with the Corps of Engineers, you're dealing with South Florida Water Management District and Florida DOT for critical CERT projects and a critical highway that is right next to each other. And they have to work perfectly together. And so this was, and these agencies have deep-seated policies that you got to work through when you're dealing with lines on a map. And so basically, the way this group did this is real estate spent countless hours creating maps and explaining right-of-way lines, section lines, and the chain of title for everyone involved. Survey and mapping revised legal descriptions repeatedly when other entities required changes. Office of Counsel Attorneys negotiated week after week with FDOT and the Corps on language for the legal documents, and planning and engineering provided invaluable support for the timing and construction of project features. So you're dealing with real estate, you're dealing with right-of-way, you're dealing with all these issues for not only the construction of it, but the long-term maintenance of it. They sorted that all out, and you guys approved it at the last board meeting, which is why they are now our March Team of the Month. And on your way up here, Marcy will race you, and we'll see who wins. All right, congratulations.
Actually have a brace on my knees, so
Okay.
it's not happening.
You won. Thanks. All right. We have a 25-year service award, Mr. Chair. Daniel Bachan, Environmental Data Analyst, Hydro Data Quality Assurance Management Unit. So Dan came to us 25 years ago in the year 2000 in hydro data management. 2000 was 25 years ago? Oh my goodness, oh, geez, just the other day, my goodness. Anyway, he came from Minnesota and he went straight into hydro data management, and he had held many positions in hydro data management: staff engineering associate, senior engineering associate, engineering associate, specialist, associate engineering tech 3, engineering tech 4, until now he's an environmental data analyst with the hydro data quality management unit. So he does the quality assurance for all of our sites out there, and particularly very important ones like the legally mandated ones, the ones for FEMA, and of course he helps put together the SOPs for all these sites out there. And they have to be accurate because they're used for water management in the South Florida Water Management District. If they're not, we got trouble. But he's put together initiatives called the One Parameter, the Anomaly Detection Initiative for the stage data, which basically makes sure that it stays quality over time. And then, of course, he's been recognized nationally because he's been doing this for so long and he does such a good job. So last year, he was the 18th Chief Data Officer for information at the Information Quality Symposium. Recognition for that, and the 60th Annual American Water Resources Association Conference, because everybody knows how important all this quality is. And so he gets these recognitions because he's been doing it for us for so long. He spent 10 years in DB Hydro for site registration, and we've got a lot of sites to register. So that's working with external partners, internal partners, to make sure everything is accurate and set up and plugged into our data systems accurately. He's on a rapid data response team, which we deploy after hurricanes and after anomalous events to figure out where we don't have eyes from our SCADA system, how the water is flowing. He's been here 25 years. He's gotten many, many awards, more than 20 over that time period because of his excellent work. He's a consummate professional. He's great for the organization, and everyone depends on Daniel for all of this good work. He likes to travel. He's visited 41 states, and he plans on visiting the remaining 9 within the next 10 years. I guess he's taking off for one of them next week, Daniel? I don't know, maybe not. But anyway, but you've got some work to do. So anyway, thanks for your 25 years, Dan. It's been great for us. Appreciate it. All right, we have a 30-year service award. It's Johanna Labrada, Procurement Bureau Chief in the Administrative Services Division. Johanna came to us 30 years ago in 1995, which was 30 years ago. That feels like maybe it's 30 years ago. And she went into she basically started as an associate in the water quality monitoring, but in 2 years' time, she went over to the procurement team, where she's been ever since. And she's had many positions in the procurement group over the years, managing all the contracts that we put out, all the procurements we put out, which has been a lot. And so now she's our bureau chief. She became bureau chief in 2016, and she's been there for almost 10 years, which is, I say here, the longest in the history of the district. She's held that position and done great work for us. So she has assisted in over 2,000 contracts being issued and solicited by the Water Management District, 2,000 contracts. And she still has her sanity. I can attest to that. So it's great work she's done for us, working with the whole team over there. It's fitting that on her 30-year anniversary, it's also Procurement Recognition Month. So that is, I'm very glad for that. And so when you come up here for your picture, Johanna, just stay up here. But her contributions have been incredible over the years. She's a certified professional public buyer, a certified public professional, and a Florida certified contract manager. And she really keeps us in check and keeps us going, because we have so many procurements, and without that, we just basically stop in our tracks. So thanks for your 30 years, Johanna. It's been wonderful. I may have mentioned that it is Procurement Month, and so we have a proclamation recognizing Procurement Month, and we want to recognize all the folks in Johanna's bureau. That we have 23 professionals there, from contract and purchasing specialists, small business enterprise program specialists, SAP data analysts, and procurement support. Last fiscal year, $1.3 billion in purchase orders and procurements. The combined total of 9,655 purchase orders issued, 222 new contracts, 11 new price agreements, 547 work orders, 81 new solicitations, 289 new firms certified as a small business enterprise, making a total of 643. 943 vendors were registered to do business with the South Florida Water Management District. Procurement is an essential cog in the South Florida Water Management District, and we're setting records on procurement these days because we are getting so much done, and we couldn't do it without this bureau. So we absolutely want to have this proclamation and get a picture with everyone that's here from the Procurement Bureau to recognize March as Procurement Month. Every year, we have a science fair here in Palm Beach, and so we like to recognize, we participate in this science fair because we are a science organization, and it's the Palm Beach Regional Science and Engineering Fair. And so we have staff attend to look at the 500 local students participating in that Palm Beach Science Fair. And of course, our staff and scientists get very impressed by some of the science fair projects that are presented, particularly if they relate to our business. And so we've got 4 projects that our staff recognized, and we have certificates for these 4 students. And I'd like to call out their names and invite them and their families if they'd like to come up and take a picture with these certificates for their great work at this science fair. And so the students are Zayra Hayder from the Florida Atlantic University High School, Lenny Hanisco from the Florida Atlantic University High School, Penelope Kirkbride from Pinecrest, Aubrey Lanier from Weiss School, all with excellent projects that our staff were very impressed with. Come on up and let's take a picture. Should we hire them now, Ben? Okay, very good. All right, before I wrap up today, I want to do a special recognition. Lawrence Glenn, this is his last board meeting at the South Florida Water Management District, which is kind of a rock to the soul of the South Florida Water Management District, because he's been here for 28 years. 28 years here as a scientist, doing incredible work for us at the Water Management District. And I didn't know Lawrence very well before I came here, but I've gotten to know him extremely well now, because we've been through some trials and tribulations. Pahokee Marina, the algae, we launched our whole algae effort under his leadership here at the Water Management District, where now we're doing incredible surveillance and treatment, and we learned a lot those first couple of years on what works and what didn't work. And then, of course, he's been here talking to you with John on all the science, and there's only one person that I know that can make oyster spat seem sexy, right? And that's Lawrence Glenn. And he can communicate so well. He leads our effort. He's the chair of the science working group, the working group for the task force. He participates in the task force, presents incredible work there. And he's always that professional that I could say, Lawrence, go out there and speak. Get on camera, get in front of the noisy crowd. Whatever we need, he's there, and he's perfect for that kind of situation. He is going to a pretty good job. He is going up to Tallahassee to the Department of Environmental Protection. In my old job, which is running the BMAP program, the Water Quality Standards program, up at the Division of Environmental Assessment and Restoration. So while he's leaving that chair, he is going to be in this podium presenting on BMAPs, if I have my way. Anyway, he is a great friend. He's got his family here. And as everyone knows, I bet that picture's on the Kissimmee. Is that picture on the Kissimmee? So he spent a lot of time on the Kissimmee. That's where his passion lies. And if you've ever talked to him about the Kissimmee River Restoration Project, you know that's where his passion lies. So we put together a framed photograph of the Kissimmee restoration for Lawrence, and we'd love to get a picture with you, and thank you for your service. And if you want your family up here with the picture, we'd love to have that too. Lawrence, it's been great. Everyone's welcome to stay, but you can also leave if you'd like to.
Well, thanks very much, Drew, and I'm sure that our board members are all going to want to say something nice about Lawrence in their individual comments, and we'll wait for them to do that. For now, we'll go on to agenda revisions. Molly, do you have any changes to the agenda?
There were none, Mr. Chairman.
Great. And now we'll go to abstentions by board members. I'll start with Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah, I have an extension. I'm abstaining from voting on discussions agenda item number 25A. In an abundance of caution, I, Ron Bergeron, wish to disclose that I may have a financial interest, direct or indirect, in various companies which do business with Lee County. As such, I will abstain from voting on the currently configured proposal, but I wish to participate in the discussions on the project, as I have strong opinions that I feel needed to express in order to fulfill my fiduciary duty.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. I have no abstentions. Mr. Butler, do you have any?
No, sir, none.
Vice Chair Wagner.
None.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
None.
Ms. Meads.
None.
Thank you. Colonel Roman.
None.
Mr. Steinle.
None.
Thank you. We're now going to move to the Big Cypress Basin report. Chair of the Big Cypress Basin Board, Colonel Roman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. This is the February 28th, 2025 Big Cypress Basin Board report. We started our meeting with a report from our Basin Administrator, Lisa Keeler, who presented the lease extension for Collier County. We have been leasing an office building to Collier County since 2014, and they would like to extend the lease for another 11 years. This will bring in $1.94 million in revenue to the basin. The Big Cypress Basin Board agreed to move forward with the lease approval process, and it will be back here before the governing board in April. Collier County Pollution Control Division provided an update on water quality trends and reported that all estuaries in Collier County are impaired. Specifically, 44 parameters are not meeting water quality standards. The county is exploring new ways to track sources of pollutants at their source and are planning to increase their education and outreach efforts over the next 5 years. Pat O'Donnell from Rookery Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve reported on the habitat needs, species distribution, and survival factors of sharks. Mr. O'Donnell also discussed impacts on various fish species downstream from the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. Overall, he feels that the restoration project is bringing positive effects with less volatile changes in salinity patterns, which is beneficial to all species in the estuary downstream of the project. Jennifer Reynolds provided an update on the restoration progress in the Western Everglades and the progress being made to restore water flows under U.S. Highway 41 Tamiami Trail. We closed our meeting with technical and staff reports. The next Basin Board meeting is April 25th, 2025 at 11 a.m. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my report, subject to any questions from the board.
Thank you, Chair Roman. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Hearing none, thanks very much for that report. We'll now go to the approval of the minutes for the February 13th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? Could I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. I'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron.
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thanks. That passes unanimously. We'll now go to the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Bartlett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last week, the official legislative session began, and so we're tracking all the activities with the legislature. The one we track most, constantly every year is the budget discussions, which have not started yet. So that is not something that started. But what has been introduced is a bill, Senate Bill 7002, related to water management districts. And so us and the other 4 water management districts are engaging on that bill. There are provisions in there about accountability and transparency, which of course we have no issues with. Whatever information we have is anyone can have it. So that's something that we absolutely support with respect to any kind of legislation and the great work the legislature does to support our efforts. There are some provisions we're tracking and working with the Senate on. There is some provisions regarding Everglades restoration in this bill, particularly with respect to the integrated delivery schedule. And as you know, what we've been tasked with the governor is making sure that we expedite and achieve even more now with Everglades restoration. So in that engagement with the integrated delivery schedule, we certainly want to make sure that there are no delays communicated and that everything can stay on track to achieve more now. In particular, we want to make sure that the federal government knows that we're committed to cost share and that cost share commitment will support their efforts as well as ours to make sure that we continue the robust implementation of the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program. Another part is the actual funding for the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan and the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Restoration Plan is part of this bill, the next year's appropriation. At the moment, when you add it up, it's about $48 million short from the governor's budget request, so we'll be engaging on that. But also in the SERP appropriation, they do have specific caps for different projects within that appropriation. And we want to make sure that, as we have for the last 6 years, are able to be nimble to advance projects, deal with changing conditions as we move forward to execute the construction of all these very important projects. So we'll be engaging on that to make sure that we can adapt to change conditions as we implement the program. There's also provisions that kind of separate out the water management districts with respect to the statewide resiliency plan. We understand why they're looking at that. We're still evaluating the numbers, the ramifications of that, and so we'll certainly engage them on that. I did talk with the sponsor of the bill, who also happens to be our chairman of our appropriation subcommittee. They are still working on it. Jen and I are heading up there next week, and he wants to meet with us to talk through the bill and make sure that a good bill comes out at the end. The outcome of the legislation, as you know, is very important to all the water management districts, DEP, and the governor's office. So we're all very engaged and certainly want to be supportive. Moving on from the legislative session, also with respect to Everglades restoration, last board meeting you approved 2 SEP North contracts to implement the restoration of the northern part of 3A. On consent today is the 3rd project that Lucinay presented about last board meeting. She also communicated that we're still waiting on Corps permits and Corps agreements to keep those projects going. I am in communication with the general and the colonel about those permits and agreements. We don't have them yet, but their timeline that they're communicating to us looks like it won't cause delays because with respect to contract award and with respect to notice to proceed on those contracts, it should line up given their current schedule. But we're still working with them to make sure that we can expedite Everglades restoration. Now, as the federal government has their efficiency efforts, so does the state government. And at the end of February, the governor signed the executive order 2544, ensuring government efficiency, which did a couple of things with respect to the state. It established a DOGE team in the office of the governor to recommend legislative reforms and promote efficiency, maximize productivity, and eliminate waste in state and local governments. But it also asked each agency of the state to establish their own DOGE team to identify and eliminate waste and spending, and use modern technology to look for more efficiencies within those state agencies. So while the executive order doesn't necessarily address water management districts, we thought it would be a good idea to also form a district efficiency team within the water management district. Now, we are efficient and we're very effective, and I presented last time sort of our metrics on over the last 15 years where we've reduced our FTEs, we've reduced our operational budget over that time, while increasing our permit application reviews by 40%. We have 50% more new critical water infrastructure, 80% more lands to manage, and almost 600% more contracts to manage with less staff and less operating expenses. So we are very efficient, but we're a government agency, and we know there's more opportunities to do more with less, eliminate unnecessary spending. The team is made up of various folks from around the district, but they're also encouraged to solicitate from every member of the district ideas through an email and forms that we set up to look for those opportunities to make us more efficient. Now, I want to stay, while I'm here at the mic, we're doing more with less already. This is not a lead up or any kind of thoughts on a reduction in force, right? We have a lot of demands, and this is not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is eliminating those unnecessary processes, those unnecessary expenses, and that is not people. We need all of our people. So that's, but I wanted to let you know that we are jumping on board with this whole efficiency effort with respect to government agencies. Last thing is, you may have noticed when you walked in, there are a lot of posters in the lobby. We did, on March 1st, publish our South Florida Environmental Report for 2025. That is a tomb of information at the South Florida Water Management District. If you need to know anything about what we're doing, it's in that report. And it takes a lot of effort from a lot of employees to put that together, because it's upwards of 2,000 pages in that report. And so I wanted to thank all those employees that did all that yeoman's work to put it together. But if you don't want to read 2,000 pages, you can go into the lobby and engage the staff on their scientific work with those poster sessions. They'll be there from 1 to 3 today. Hopefully we'll wrap up in that time frame so that we can all enjoy and learn about what they're doing at the district. That's all I've got for you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Bartlett? Thanks, Drew. We're going to go now to our first public comment period. If you're here to comment on a specific agenda item, we ask that you hold your comment until we reach that item on our agenda. This comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items, and we appreciate everyone's help in running an efficient meeting, as Drew just mentioned. Public comment and consent agenda items is 13 on the agenda, and public comment for discussion items 25 and 26 will be heard after each of those presentations. The public had an opportunity to provide written comments prior to this meeting. We did not receive any e-comment. And is there general public comment, Molly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Newton Cook, followed by Gil Smart.
Thank you, Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. And yes, the information in the lobby is really impressive. I don't think very often people realize how much is going on, and it's an incredible amount of work going on. And there's a lot of 2030 dates out there, I notice. That's a bit far in the future for me. What I'm here for today, obviously, is we have the recreation meeting on Monday, the 24th at 5 p.m. right here in this room, also on Zoom. And I'd like to invite everyone to come. And we have I just want to say thanks to Dan Cotter and Mike Cheek and James Harbaugh. They worked and put together a great agenda, and this time it's a really good agenda. We have a variety of things on it. The I-75 corridor has a lot of boat ramps and facilities, and it's a constant problem because no one wants to claim responsibility for the boat ramp or the condition of the facilities. But evidently we're going to have a nice update on that. It is a problem because there are limited access points across Alligator Alley, and if one or more of them are closed, then people drive up and all of a sudden, you know, whole tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres are no longer accessible. The Indian River Lagoon South, and this is, of course, the C-23, C-25, a lot of work going on out there. A lot of recreation has been going on there, and now in the future there'll be even more. There's that 2030 date on it again, though. But nonetheless, that's the only way you get this stuff done, is get it done early. If you don't get it done now, the recreation has to stop there. The SEP North update, and also the South Recreation facilities for SEP, and that's a lot of stuff, a lot of different items, and we look forward to hearing about that. Vegetation management and the STAs, I'm sure that's going to bring some Zoom comments about this past duck season. The vegetation management continues to not be good for the birds. I'm not so sure it's so good for taking phosphorus out either, but with Q-Bell coming, everybody understands we have to get those numbers down, and we don't manage these STAs for ducks or duck hunters, but we sure would like to go back to the days when 1 year, 15% of all the ducks in Florida were killed on 3 STAs. That's just incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, we'd like to get back to that. If you got good water for ducks, you got good water for people. That's about it, and I appreciate everything the district has been doing. We're going into the period when we have more people than ever on the properties, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll hear next from Gil Smart, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Morning, Governing Board members. My name is Gil Smart. I'm Policy Director for Friends of the Everglades. We were founded in 1969 by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and we're headquartered in Stewart. I come to you today to speak of rock mines, specifically the Southland Rock Mine, which is trying hard to gather a head of steam. The project's got a slick website now. It's pushing for an environmental resource permit from the DEP and land use changes from Palm Beach County, even though this board has not yet reviewed and approved the proposal. Earlier this month, the Everglades Law Center sent a letter on behalf of Friends of the Everglades to the zoning director in Palm Beach County, urging the county not to advance this project until the South Florida Water Management District has completed its evaluation. In fact, when Mr. Bartlett spoke of Southland at the last governing board meeting, he acknowledged that, quote, "We have not conducted our full review." But he noted, when more storage opportunities present themselves, the district will entertain the idea by doing our due diligence to see if those opportunities are meaningful and feasible. This due diligence has not yet happened. If and when it does, it should go just beyond just feasibility and look at the bigger picture. The future of the Everglades depends on what happens in the Everglades agricultural area where Southland is proposed. The district needs to do a holistic assessment of the entire area to determine what land needs still exist to serve the water quality and water management needs of South Florida now and in the future. If we're ever going to finally curtail harmful discharges to the northern estuaries, flow enough clean water south to fix Florida Bay and rehydrate the Everglades, how much land will we need and where should it be located? While we recognize the need for the district to comply with the state process in considering unsolicited proposals like this one, Everglades restoration is not a slapdash project to be pursued on a piecemeal, project-by-project basis as they happen to be proposed. Rather, this project, or any project, needs to fit into the big picture. But what is the big picture anyway? As you may be aware, Friends of the Everglades recently launched an initiative called Rescue the River of Grass that answers that question. Science tells us that we need to finish the job by acquiring at least 100,000 acres in the EAA for dynamic water storage and water treatment. We're looking down the road, and we invite you to join us. It's important to recognize that if Southland gets approved, it will present a mine-sized pothole in that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. We'll hear next from Caitlin Newcamp, followed by Arella Bagay.
Good morning, governing board members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. First, I want to congratulate Lawrence Glenn on his amazing work he's done here at the district, and we're sad to see him go, but it's been wonderful working with him. Today, during this comment period, I want to talk a little bit about the Wading Bird Report. So we are pleased to announce that we have released the Wading Bird Report for this year. marking an important collaboration with the district and many other vital partners. As many of you know, Florida's iconic wading birds serve as key indicators of ecosystem health, providing invaluable insights into the impact of water management practices, climate patterns, and Everglades restoration. This report covers water years 2022 to 2023. And while these years don't rival the record-breaking numbers we saw in 2018 and 21, we are witnessing a steady increase in nesting, a promising sign that the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan is working. In fact, we have seen tremendous strides over the past 3 decades, with recent years yielding more than twice the number of nests seen in 1999. However, while we celebrate this progress, it's important to acknowledge that a rise in nesting does not necessarily equate to increased chick survival, and we are still far from reaching the historic nesting numbers of 150,000 to 250,000 seen about a century ago. The nesting figures from 22 and 23 align closely with those used to establish the restoration target goals, with 22 marking the 3rd highest nesting total of the past decade. So what does this all mean? While we've made significant progress and are seeing more birds returning, there's still more work to be done. In 2022, relatively dry conditions diminished prey availability and foraging habitats across the Everglades, while in 23, heavy rains caused water level reversals during peak nesting season, forcing wading birds to expend extra energy to nourish their chicks. Nest productivity, therefore, did not match the increases in nesting. And on Lake Okeechobee, deeper water levels led to about 40% fewer nests than average. Nonetheless, continued investments in restoration projects such as those under SERP and efforts of the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative provide hope for a more resilient ecosystem. These initiatives are designed to restore natural water flow and enhance water quality and ensure more stable foraging conditions throughout the year. As restoration progresses, the Everglades has the potential to support a more robust wading bird population, even amid challenging weather conditions that we all face. We urge the district and our partners to maintain momentum in restoration efforts so that we can look forward to even stronger numbers for these remarkable birds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. We'll move over to our virtual participants and hear next from Arella Bagay. Ms. Bagay, please unmute your mic.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good morning, Governing Board and everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to just share my experiences with Lawrence Glenn over the years. It has been an absolute privilege. And when I served on the Governing Board, I recall his very incredible ability to break down complex water science that really shaped our key decision-making. And whether it was like Kissimmee River restoration or leading water quality, supply, and ecosystem monitoring, all of that has made a great impact on me as in my future career. And as he takes on this new role with DEP, I know he'll continue making a huge difference for all of us. And I wanted to just wish him well in his next chapter. I also want to encourage everyone to check out the Environmental Report Science Fair. I affectionately call it the best science fair in South Florida. And that's for good reason, because again, without science and data, we can't make informed decisions. And we have such an incredible, dedicated workforce in the South Florida Water Management District that I'm so proud of the work and the immense technical work that it takes to really help us understand how fragile and how unique our ecosystem is. So thank you everyone for all your hard work, and thank you Governing Board for supporting all of the work that we still continue to have to get done.
Thank you, Ms. Bagay. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment.
Well, thank you all for your comments. We'll go now to board comment. And Mr. Bergeron, would you like to start?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The first thing I want to say is, and I say this nearly at every meeting, but it's so important. Our staff, want to thank 1,500 strong that not only is responsible for flood protection and water supply for 16 counties and 10 million, approaching 10 million people in South Florida. But the oversight of Everglades restoration, the largest environmental restoration in the history of the world ever attempted. Boy, are we blessed to have the people we have. And Florida can be the example to the rest of the world that we can have jobs and economical growth and a quality of life. You know, we live on a peninsula, and I think our citizens are starting to recognize that the Everglades, the watershed that provides our drinking water, and stop saltwater intrusion into our peninsula is not only are we saving the wildlife and God's landscaping, but we're really saving ourselves. And I just got to say, I'm so honored to be a part of this. But and like I said, we can be the example to the rest of the world. I do want to highlight Lawrence. We're going to miss you. Yeah, you know, your intellectual knowledge, your commitment to Florida is impeccable. And it's been a great honor for me to personally work with you. Not that we agreed on everything, you know, but as we discussed things, we ended up coming up with solutions by communication. So I wish you and your family and your future good health and happiness and success, friendship, spread the love, and long live the Everglades. And I mean that to all our staff. I know I sound like a broken record because I talk about moving water south every meeting. I apologize, but I can't help myself. We're on the threshold of the hugest benefit that we've ever seen since we started 25 years ago. And it all comes back to all of the great projects that we built north of the Tammany Trail. All of our stormwater and treatment areas, the success we've had on quality of water, the reservoirs we're building, which are important because the Everglades half the size it was before it was compartmentalized. So I always spend a lot of time looking at the barriers that would restrict us from moving 2.5 million acre feet of water naturally by gravity from just below Orlando through the Kissimmee River floodplains into the heart of the Everglades, the lake, Okeechobee, discharges out our rivers, Caloosahatchee, St. Lucie, Indian River Lagoon, rehydrating Everglades National Park in Florida Bay, seagrass dying from lack of water. The most critical is to finish the Tammany Trail that continuously has cumulatively backed up high water conditions in the Central Everglades, the Big Cypress Preserve, Caloosahatchee, Picayune, Panther Refuge, and we're getting very close. I think the important thing, what are the barriers? And Drew and myself have been having meetings with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Park Service, Department of Interior, the U.S. Corps, looking at what's left. We got over 3 miles of bridges, the road's being elevated. Estimated completion of the road is March, June of next year. what's left, that we can move water south. We have met with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We were heading in the direction of the S-12A and B and the 343A and B on a condition-based operation. The science supports it. In 2007, Critical Habitat of the Cape Sable Sparrow rules and regulations specifically pointed out that removing Zone A, Units 1 and 2, out of critical habitat would benefit and would allow restoring the global system. It specifically says that. And it would benefit the Cape Sable Sparrow overall. It's a win-win. So we have the support of U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We have the captive breeding program, which allows us to move forward, and I would say by December of this year, within a year, we'll be operating the western side of Shark River Slough, Lossman Slough, rehydrating that, and letting the 40% of 2.5 million acre feet, that's part of our science, to flow naturally by gravity. I think it's important as we continue to go forward, Drew, that we work with our federal partners to achieve that. We continue to, west of the L-28, I know our staff is modeling the Tamiami Trail and Loop Road, where the 3 additional culverts in the L-28, along with the 343A and B and 344 and the 2 S-12s, that natural flow into Lossman Slough to the 10,000 islands, natural by gravity, is possible within a year. And I think it's important that we work with our federal partners, we work with the Everglades Task Force to understand how important the blue shanty to get the 60% of 2.5 million acre feet flowing naturally on the east side of Shark River Slough. This bottleneck, once it's completed and operational, the 2.5 million acre feet, that's the natural flow by gravity, is not being cumulatively backed up north, affecting the Miccosukes, affecting our public Central Everglades and the Big Cypress. This is the biggest step we will see getting benefits on projects we built over 25 years. And I know I talk a lot about this, but that 2.5 million acre feet, once it's flowing, doesn't go into a reservoir. That's the natural volumes for 4 million acres of the Everglades. And I'm excited that we will continue. I had a conversation this morning driving here with Larry Williams. He's 100% aboard of getting the new water control COP. I also asked him that once the blue shanty is done, that we have the ability to let the 60-40 flow. There's no reason to cut off the west side once the blue shanty is done. Let the gravity flow naturally. So I apologize. I talk a lot about this, but I got to tell you, this is a huge benefit that's coming up. We've been looking at all those bridges for 10 years that are built, and the road will be done. We got to address the Osceola Camp, Drew, to make sure they were elevated, and then we have to make sure, and we're Drew and myself are dealing with the Park Service to make sure that the airboat tours have elevated their docks, their properties to be compatible with modified water. So we want to make sure that that's done, and we will continue to update the board as we work on these barriers to make sure when that road is done, we're moving water south, because that is a huge, the public is correct, because I hear it from all of them. That's a huge step forward, and we'll report at every meeting as we progress to go forward and move water south. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well said, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I echo your comments. I will verbally echo your comments in talking about how you started talking about staff and the importance of every one of our district employees and how important they are to the entire system. And I appreciate everything they do. Lawrence, you're going to leave a big hole to fill. And it's great you brought your beautiful family. I've heard all about the volleyball and swimming and comparing notes of what you've been through with helping me raise my younger daughter. And I have appreciated all your counsel, always been even-keeled, always been positive. Even when we're talking about the tough discussions, you've kept it positive and you've spun it in a light of looking forward. And that's a great characteristic, and a characteristic that DEP is going to be very lucky to have you, especially working in the BMAP program, and because it's certainly forward-looking is where we ought to be. So look forward to crossing paths again, and but no, appreciate your service. One other little nugget. About a week ago, I popped in. Dr. Moran was putting on her resiliency workshops, throughout different areas. I think she did 4 workshops. I popped into the northern one up in Orange County, and that was covering Okeechobee, Highlands, Polk, Osceola, and Orange counties, and had a lot of municipality representatives, county, local reps, a lot of project updates on what's happening at the local level. There are a lot of things that our local counties and cities are doing when it comes to resiliency, when it comes to flood protection, it comes to balancing urban growth, food production, and ecosystem restoration. We heard from Tabitha Beal of Polk County, their program of acquiring lands, environmentally sensitive lands, and also other projects. You look at Polk County, it's one of the largest, fastest growing counties in urban growth in the United States, and to hear some of their challenges that they've been through. But it was a great open discussion. I want to commend staff that put that together. It was very well done, very engaging, and Carolina and crew, I just give you kudos for all of that. That wraps up my comments this month, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Vice Chair Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick comments. It's great to see our employees recognized once again this month. I think Drew was mentioning that we were sort of Doge before Doge was cool. I think the governor said that. I think the district's certainly been there on that. It's really nice to see, us, we have huge budgets, but, fighting to make every dollar count and go as far as it possibly can efficiently, I think is just a good way to be a steward of public funds and to continue doing what we're doing. Couple comments on Lawrence Glenn. It is absolutely a gut punch to have Lawrence leave. He's a totally positive, optimistic, great attitude individual who puts up with obviously a ton of different personalities on our board. He's been amazing to me. He's been a wealth of information and a source of knowledge that I've leaned on. I've learned a lot from Lawrence, and wish him the best in the future. It's bittersweet to see him go, but he'll stay here in Florida and be with DEP. So we keep everybody in the family, and I wish you all the best, Lawrence. Don't lose touch, and thanks for all you do. Thanks, Chauncey.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Martinez. We'll come back to you. Ms. Meads?
Well, Lawrence, you know what? I'm so sad to hear you go, but so excited for you. Change is a great thing in a lifetime. This is going to be good for you, your family. We're glad about that. We love you at the district. We're going to miss you terribly, but excited for you. So have a great time in your new endeavor. I just wanted, on a personal note, I just wanted to say that I've been absent a great deal and Zooming in. I've been ill. I had a surgery in October. That surgery failed. I'll have another surgery this Thursday, which the doctors have assured me will be successful. And after a time of healing, I will be back, and I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much for letting me Zoom in.
Thank you, Ms. Meads. Colonel Roman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple of things here. First of all, to follow up on Mr. Bergeron's comments, I think that you're absolutely right about the work that we need to do to remove the barriers to moving more water south. And I think also we need to look for opportunities. And Drew and his team have been doing a wonderful job with those opportunities. And I think where we've made the most progress, although I'd like to see us continue to make progress in this area, is with Florida Department of Transportation, or FDOT. I talked with Jennifer Marshall, who's the director for the Office of Environmental Management for FDOT at the, I met her at the Everglades Coalition Conference, and what a breath of fresh air. I mean, talk about someone who is committed to working with us and making the opportunities to move that water south. I think she's really on board, and I feel very positive about her work with the district going forward. But I think we need to look for opportunities just as well as remove those barriers. So I would add that to your comments. Secondly, it was nice to see the procurement department recognized today with Procurement Month. I don't think we really think about procurement. You know, there's no ribbon cuttings for purchase orders and buying stuff and getting those contracts right. And Drew, you really highlighted the magnitude of the work that division does. And that was really great to hear. And lastly, thank you, Lawrence. You have done amazing work. I mean, talk about our history together as a governing board with you. I mean, it's just been amazing. You sprung out of those workshops we used to have when we were a brand new governing board, and you brought us along and you helped us understand the science in a very easy, approachable way that brought us all along together. And that's just amazing that you have that talent, and I hope you'll continue to use it at DEP, because sometimes DEP gets way too technical to where nobody can understand what they're saying, and you could bring that talent of yours to that department as well. And it was great seeing your beautiful family and seeing them virtually, and it's just great that you're going to have another opportunity to start a new chapter. And I personally want to thank you. Out of my many travels around the district, our visit together to the Kissimmee River floodplain inundation that day was just incredible. So thank you so much, and good luck to you, and best of luck in your next chapter. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Colonel Roman. Mr. Steinle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess well, a few things. Cheryl, we wish you the best in a speedy recovery. Obviously, I want to echo what Scott Wagner mentioned. From my perspective, before I joined the board, I was rather cynical about the efficiency of government agencies. I'm very happy to say, and I've said this before, that you guys have proven me wrong, that the district is in fact run very efficiently. It takes its responsibility to taxpayers very seriously and continues to do so much more with less. Fewer people than we originally had, and making it work. So there's always more work to be done. Drew, I think it's great that you've sort of been proactive in terms of looking at how we can always improve. There's new technologies, there's new perspectives, how we can approach things. So I think we can improve, but I've been, just to say it again, I've been very pleased and comforted to be part of an organization, a government organization that I've seen run so smoothly and take its fiduciary responsibility so seriously. Obviously, I want to thank Lawrence for his amazing work and long commitment to the district. You've helped us achieve so much. I've learned a lot from you. Family is the most important thing. So I'm sure this decision was tough and bittersweet, but I'm confident it's the right one. It'll be a pleasure to work with you, I hope in parallel at DEP. And we wish you all the best in the future. Thanks so much for everything you've done. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Steinle. Mr. Martinez?
Yes, just the only comment is, again, Lawrence, we will miss you. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for all the service you provide to us as board members. And good luck on all your future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and I'll wrap up. I'd like to just reiterate a little bit of what Drew was talking about with Senate Bill 7002, and I really appreciate the Senate who's going to work with us and is working with us to achieve what they're trying to achieve. One of the things I'd like to point out is that, you know, when you look at states that work with the Corps of Engineers, Florida really is the poster child for what a local sponsor to the Corps should look like. And SERP has been an incredible success, I think pretty much due to the nimbleness of the state of Florida, and that nimbleness has been the result of this district's ability to pivot really quickly, and that ability to pivot quickly has been made available to us by a governor who has shown incredible leadership on this, and a state legislature that's shown incredible leadership on this. And so I want to be really careful that we don't fix what doesn't need fixing as we go through this process, and we make sure that the Senate's aware of how well this process can work for us and has been working for the taxpayers of Florida, and actually the taxpayers in the nation. Ms. Mead, Cheryl, I hope you feel better, and best of luck. I'll be praying for you for your surgery next week. Lawrence, only 28 years? Come on, 2 more. But having said that, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for the district, for all you've done for everyone. I first met you during, I think, the MFL issues with the Caloosahatchee. I don't think I agreed with you much, but you were always incredibly level-headed, very objective. Your love of the resource is so apparent, and that carries through, and that really helps frame everything you do. You taught me a lot. If you don't want to go to DEP, you could always be a college professor, because every meeting felt like I was getting a class in something in the environmental science world, so thank you for that. We wish you luck at DEP, and we're really lucky to have you in the state. I'm thrilled you're not leaving, and we look forward to working with you. And thanks to you, and thanks to your family for all the time that they've allowed you to spend with us. We'll move now to consent, and if there's any board members who want to move any consent.
I'd like to say one other thing.
Mr. Bergeron.
Lawrence, you are a great example of the progress we've made with Everglades restoration. And I have a very special gift that most people can't give, but I want to offer you free alligator wrestling lessons for your service. See how big a boy you really are? Okay.
They know.
But God bless on your journey with you and your family. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Is there anyone who'd like to move any items on consent? Hearing none. Do I need a motion? No. We'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear from Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning again, governing board members. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. I just want to talk a little bit about consent item number 23. So we are in full support of this proposed amendment to the agreement for the Bull Hammock Ranch Payment for Environmental Services project under NEP. This project has been a crucial part of efforts to improve the water quality and hydrology of the St. Lucie River watershed. Since operations began in 2015, the ranch has successfully reduced discharges to the C-23 canal and helped moderate flows to the St. Lucie estuary. In fact, over the past few years, the project has stored an average of 764 acre-feet of water annually, removing approximately 0.3 metric tons of phosphorus and 1.4 metric tons of nitrogen each year. With the proposed expansion, the project will store up to 3,300 acre-feet of water and will retain an additional 2 metric tons of phosphorus and 8 metric tons of nitrogen, improvements that will significantly benefit the health of the St. Lucie estuary. So we believe this expansion is critical for achieving the goals of NEP. The partnership between the public and private sectors has proven to be an effective and a cost-effective and efficient approach to addressing these complex environmental challenges. We know that the St. Lucie BMAP also has a ways to go to reach pollution reduction and storage goals, and projects like this can help get us there. So Audubon is a longstanding proponent of efforts like these, and we urge the district to explore more opportunities like this in the Northern Everglades. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our public comment on consent.
Thanks. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner? Mr. Martinez? Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner? Mr. Martinez? All right, that passes unanimously. We'll go now to discussion, and I think we're going to change things up a little bit. Instead of item number 25, we're going to move to item 26 and come back to item 25. So that's the Okeechobee Field Station expansion, and that's Mr. Virgil.
Good morning. I'm here today to bring the Okeechobee Field Station expansion and relocation project before you, the contract amendment 2, which brings us into actual construction of the field station replacement. Little background here, this is the field station back in 1962 when it basically first opened. This, if you see right here in the Quonset hut that's actually located on there, as we move to the sort of the present day photo of the field station, that Quonset hut is still located down here in the lower right-hand corner, though we did have to recently take it down due to structural deficiencies of the building, but we certainly got our money's worth out of that building. In the early phases of planning for the relocation or the rebuild of the field station, the city of Okeechobee kind of indicated that they would prefer that we move to a new location because of the residential nature of the neighborhood around us. And additionally, the area here does not have a sanitary sewer connection available to us, and we're still on septic tank to this day. The existing facilities really reached the end of its life, and we need to build a new facility that meets current codes and meets our needs. The metal buildings that are there now, they're prone to corrosion. We have limited workspace in our fleet shop. Our office space is inadequate for our current staff and our storage areas as well. The new facility will consolidate a lot of our activities, as the Okeechobee area is a regional area that serves the northern part of the district. So we'll be bringing the service center in to the field station. We'll be bringing all the land management folks in. We also will be working our regulation area, SCADA, survey, and water quality will all be housed at the new facility. But really the main reason why we're building the new field station and expanding is due to all the large new projects that have come on for their area of responsibility over the last 10 years. Currently, a lot of stuff are under construction right now, and then we have future projects coming up. But the original field station was really built to serve the original Central and South Florida flood control project that was built back in the 1950s and through the 1960s. You know, we had our Indian Prairie facilities for C40, C41, C41A, the Kissimmee River, the North Shore pump stations, and also the C23, 24, 25 complex in the St. Lucie, Martin County area. So now, over the last 10 years, we've added quite a bit of infrastructure to the responsible area. So we have projects such as the Nubbin Slough STA and the Taylor Creek STA. The 10 Mile Creek STA and the 10 Mile Creek Reservoir, large projects that were added. As well as the Lakeside Ranch STA phases 1 and 2 and the newly constructed S191A recirculatory pump station. And the granddaddy of the area at this time, the C44 Reservoir and STA. Now, we also have the current IRL, Indian River Lagoon, St. Lucie estuary projects that are ongoing. The C23-24 STA is under construction. We have the C23 Estuary Discharge Diversion Works, which includes this S357 pump station, which pumps water from the C23 canal down to the new C44 reservoir, well under construction. We broke ground on the C23-24 South Reservoir, and we also have the C24, C23 North Reservoir underway, and the STA associated with those, and the C25 Reservoir and its STA are all poised to break ground. Then as we move forward, we're looking at as many as 55 aquifer storage and recovery wells coming on board for the Okeechobee Field Station. Each of these require a water treatment plant associated with them to bring the water to water quality standards before it's pumped down into the wells and then brought back for recovery. So there's a lot of operation and maintenance responsibilities associated with those water treatment plants. So this is the C38 site, and this is the L63 North ASR site that are both, the exploratory wells have been drilled. We move on to the large Lokar Reservoir, the 12,000 acre reservoir that's potentially store up to 200,000 acre feet. This is on the same scale as the C43 reservoir, 18 miles of embankment, 12,000 acres. And then we have the lower Kissimmee STA that's currently in development and design. That's be up to 4,800 acres also. I'd just like to kind of frame this in a way that, you know, we say field operations, but that doesn't just mean the pump station operators and canal levee and the structure maintenance techs that have responsibilities for these facilities. We've got water quality people that have to go out and take samples. They have to maintain their equipment. The samples come back in and they have to be processed by the lab. We have SCADA folks that are responsible for the telemetry system and the remote operation of all of these facilities so that they can be monitored here at the headquarters and operated. And then, as we know, all of these features have public recreation associated with them, and there's a large presence of land management staff associated with managing all of those public recreation areas. So here we go. This is the new home of the Okeechobee Field Station. It's located about 3 miles north of town, situated on US 441, adjacent to our Taylor Creek SDA, and across the street from the Forestry Service. So this is a rendering of the new entryway to the field station and a list of the features that it'll have. The new, field offices and maintenance facilities, communication towers and shelters. But one of the big ones is that we're going to now have a backup emergency operations center at this facility that'll be in a hardened facility, and a water control center to be able to manage the system. If anything happens here at B1 due to a major hurricane, we would be able to relocate out to the field station and manage our emergency response operations for that storm. Like I'd said before, the Regional Service Center is going to be coming in. That's our intergovernmental reps. It's our land management staff, and we also have regulatory staff for permitting that'll be coming into the field station. And of course, the regional water quality lab and storage facilities will be reconstructed here new. And then we're also going to co-locate with FWC for the statewide nuisance alligator program. So as you can see, it's going to be quite the regional hub. Here's a nice rendering of the facilities as proposed. We have the admin buildings and the EOC in the upper left, maintenance facilities across the back, and the new water quality lab on the right side. Side-by-side comparison of the existing to the proposed facilities. These are some of the office facilities on site currently and where they'll be relocated to within the new building. Here's our maintenance facility up close. You can see the existing fleet maintenance building and what it'll be replaced with, and the existing land management storage facility as well. And here's the renderings and the side-by-side comparison of the existing laboratory building and the existing water quality storage buildings and their replacement buildings. So under the Amendment 1 of the contract that was authorized back in October of '23, we completed the 90% design, the permitting for all the off-site work, which included the utility being extended up, water and sewer, the roadway work, and the tower work, communication tower works. That's all about 70% complete at this time. And then the final stage of this Amendment 1 is to develop the stipulated cost proposal for the final phase of the construction. So there's the Amendment 2 is what we're looking for authorization for today from you all. And this is going to complete the permitting and then complete the actual construction of all of the buildings that I just showed you, and consolidate all of the works. It'll add about 247 days to the contract to bring it out to 1427. So I bring before you the resolution for the Amendment 2 for the field station.
Thanks, Rich. Before we go to board comment, I'll see if there's any public comment.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Mr. Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This certainly has been a long time coming, isn't it, Bruce? And Bruce, you're okay with this? I hadn't got to talk to you about it. Everything, you got everything in there you want? Yes, sir. Everything you need? Yes, sir. Nothing you want, right? Okay. No, I have certainly pushed on Drew when I saw the price tag, but it is reality. This is what the district needs in order to maintain that big picture, all these projects that we have that are going to require O&M and the support personnel housing them going forward. And this is going to be a big deal. I've driven by the old field station here every day for the last couple of days, heading out to the fairgrounds. And man, that is right in the middle of the neighborhood. And you know, to be able to get out to this area and have room to actually move equipment around, set stuff off, lay down, this is going to be be a big deal. It's going to increase the efficiency, I know, of Bruce and his team. Look forward to approving this.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. And Rich, thank you for that presentation. It provides really good context, particularly for me, who I don't live up in this area. So just seeing all the projects you're doing, I mean, you're probably doing more than a lot of other water management districts in the United States just out of this area with all those projects you showed us and the amount you've taken on there. So I appreciate that you need the resources to support those. And I also like the fact that you're putting the backup EOC there. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm always worried about having backup and making sure that we're set for contingencies. So I'm fully supportive of this. Mr. Bergeron, do you have any comments?
Yes, I totally reviewed this in my briefing. It's a project that's very well needed, and it's a great project. Thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone on the phone have any comments? All right, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the resolution.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion in 2 seconds to approve Resolution 2025-0313. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thanks. That passes unanimously. Thanks,
All right,
Rich.
thank you very much. I just wanted, before I leave, thank Lucine and her team and Bruce and his team for getting this project to this point. It's just amazing. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll move now to item 25, which is the Caloosahatchee River watershed projects. And Mr. Bergeron is going to join the discussion, but will not be voting on this.
Correct.
Ms. Reynolds.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide this agenda item to you today. So this agenda item, we're going to talk a little bit about the Caloosahatchee River watershed projects more generally up front, and then I will have 2 resolutions for you at the end of the presentation. One resolution will have to do with the 3 grant projects that we're going to talk about, and the second resolution will have to do with the Lake Hickbachee expansion project. And so just so that everybody knows where we're headed with this presentation. So as we look at the Caloosahatchee watershed, why we care about this is part of our mission associated with the Northern Everglades and Estuary Protection Program. But by statute, we have the coordinating agencies, the South Florida Water Management District, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. We work together to protect and restore our surface water resources by improving the hydrology and water quality for the 3 northern watersheds. That's the Caloosahatchee watershed, the St. Lucie River watershed, and the Lake Okeechobee watershed. And so that's the construct that we're talking about. So the Caloosahatchee River watershed, this is a really big watershed. This watershed is almost 1 million acres. So you'll see a couple of different numbers. The reason that this slide says 882,000 acres, and you might have noticed in the very tiny print on the previous slide, it said like 1.1 million acres. What's the difference? Those coastal areas, so the purple on this slide, isn't included in the metrics that are used to talk about loading to the estuary, because that's coastal, so it's part of the watershed, but it doesn't contribute to the numbers that feed into the estuary through the river. So that's the difference in the numbers that you'll see. And so I'm using that as an example of there's a lot of science, and there's a lot of data, and there's a lot of assessment that goes into how we put together our watershed protection plan. And our portion as the coordinating agencies of the watershed protection plan is we provide data, through our monitoring network that I'm going to talk about a little bit on this slide, and then through our projects that we deliver, and I'm going to talk about that in the rest of the presentation. So the first part is about our data, and I hope that you'll be able to join us after the board meeting today and talk with some of our scientists out in the lobby who are really showcasing how do we do this. How do we provide this data? How do we do the assessments? And how do we incorporate all of that into this program? So how we do that in the Caloosahatchee River watershed, we have 5 basin level sites. Those are right along the river. We have 15 upstream sites. That helps us understand the tributaries that feed into those basin level sites. And so that's how our monitoring network works for the Caloosahatchee River watershed. As we look at our evaluation of those sites, it helps us understand these portions of the watershed. And so they're depicted by color here. We sort of separate them out by the way that the water flows. That's how we do the monitoring, and it helps us isolate different constituents, different ideas, different problems to solve. And then we share that information with our coordinating agencies, and we decide how do we best tackle what we're seeing in the data. And so as part of what is showcased in our South Florida environmental report this year, it includes the 5-year update to the Caloosahatchee River Watershed Protection Plan. As part of that update, we revised the modeling. One of the things, for example, that's incorporated in that is an update on the boundaries. So as we learn more from our data, we understand that maybe we didn't have the boundaries exactly right and an area drains into the Caloosahatchee River watershed that maybe we thought previously drained into the Lake Okeechobee watershed, or maybe it's split. And so we revised those boundaries. In this update, the Caloosahatchee River watershed, for example, had a couple of small boundary updates, increasing our area for the Caloosahatchee River watershed from about 861,000 to 882,000. So that's an example of the updates that you'll see in this 5-year protection plan update. We also reevaluated the storage. Previously, we had been looking at, is 400,000 acre feet of storage about what we need in the Caloosahatchee River watershed, and we confirmed that in this update. And so we also incorporated watershed assessments looking at each of the different areas, so east, west, the coastal areas and the tidal areas associated with the Caloosahatchee River watershed, and then that small basin that's closest to the lake, the S4 basin. And so we look at those individually in order to prioritize where we should be placing projects. And then implementing projects. So we take a look at all this information. We're looking at implementing projects, the Watershed Protection Plan and the Basin Management Action Plan. Incorporate efforts not just by the 3 coordinating agencies, but also the counties, municipalities, and other organizations that are providing projects as part of our water quality efforts to meet our targets associated with the BMAP, the Basin Management Action Plan. And so how we do that is we deliver projects and we sort of categorize them into 4 buckets. And those 4 buckets include public-private partnerships, like our dispersed water management projects. And so here's some examples of our dispersed water management projects, public-private partnerships that we do in conjunction with private landowners. So these types of projects, the delivery mechanism is they are private lands. We enter into an agreement with that private landowner to do design, limited construction, and pay a service payment for their water quality benefits based on the project that they're providing. And so here are 3 examples. Mudge Ranch in the middle is a passive storage project. What does that mean? That means that rain falls on that property and they keep it there. So instead of draining it quickly, like we do off of a lot of our agricultural lands, they've agreed to passively store or not drain those lands, and that helps us reduce the loading to the river. The two projects on the ends, the one on the left-hand side, the Four Corners project, back in 2023, we celebrated the ribbon cutting on this project. This project is interesting and unique because it's a rapid infiltration area. That means that the geology is such that the water seeps into the ground very quickly within this area and is stored underground, making its way back to the river very slowly. And so it's almost like an underground storage component of this facility because of that rapid infiltration, which is a natural geologic feature of this property. The Roadrunner project is a new impoundment and chemical treatment project. So this is an innovative tech project that will come online next year. We just signed the agreement with Roadrunner in order to implement this. The board approved this project 2 years ago in our request for proposals that we received. This was one of those projects, and so it's coming to fruition, and we expect to see that online next year. In our second bucket of projects, so the first bucket is public-private partnerships. Second bucket are public projects that we do with state funding. So these are public projects, meaning that the Water Management District owns the land, and then we receive appropriations from the legislature in order to deliver projects. So we design and construct these projects and we operate them. And so some examples of projects that we have in the Caloosahatchee Basin, we have the BOMA test cells. Those came online earlier this year, and so we are testing the reduction of nitrogen at a test cell scale in this project. We had previously done it on a much smaller scale. We built this project on our BOMA site, and so on the right-hand side of the slide is the rest of that site. So right now we have the interim storage impoundment that's been in operation since 2019, and later this year we'll be bringing a flow equalization project that will construct a bigger flow equalization storage area on this site. And those test cells are sort of in the middle of this project area and allow us to leverage the science that we're learning from those test cells into the broader project. A couple more examples in this bucket associated with the C43 reservoir that we'll talk about in just a moment. The C43 reservoir water quality component. So this is the alum treatment that we've talked about a few times. This is a state-led project that complements the C43 reservoir. And this project is finishing construction also this year. The Berry Groves District Lands Enhancement Project, this is the land that the district owns that's just north of the C43 reservoir. So between where the reservoir is and the river. This is a mixed upland and wetland area, former agriculture, that we've identified as an area that we can restore and enhance panther habitat. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but these are two additional projects that we are working on and that we're excited about as they complement our third bucket. And so that third bucket of types of projects that we deliver as part of the Watershed Protection Plan are our SERP projects. And so in the Caloosahatchee watershed, we have the C43 West Basin Storage Reservoir. We've talked about this several times before. What's exciting about this project is, number one, a brand new photo. So this photo is just taken earlier this week on site. And so what you're looking at is the northern boundary of the reservoir looking west. And so you'll see the northern edge of the reservoir, and in the middle, that's the separation dam separating the two cells of the reservoir. This reservoir for the Watershed Protection Plan and for the Caloosahatchee watershed provides nearly half of the storage that we need in this watershed. And so, really important project that we're excited about seeing it come online later this year for filling. So we'll start filling this later this year. And so that's the third bucket of projects. These are CERT projects, part of the state and federal partnership to restore America's Everglades. The fourth bucket we're going to talk about in just a minute is our grant projects. And so I'll wait and talk about our grants in just a moment, but before we get there, I did want to add one other consideration. So as we're delivering these 4 buckets of projects, one other thing that is important for us to consider in the Caloosahatchee watershed is our panther habitat. And so south of the Caloosahatchee watershed, in our western Everglades, we have a a 55,000 acre restoration project, the Picayune Strand project. And so part of the importance of that project is we're restoring panther habitat, 55,000 acres of panther habitat in Picayune Strand. But panthers historically didn't just live there in the western Everglades. They had a very wide range that went all the way through the Caloosahatchee River watershed, north of the Caloosahatchee River, and expanded into central and in some places even northern Florida. And so one of the goals of the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission is to help panthers restore that historic range. And so as we're looking at our projects, we're also considering how do we help be a partner in those efforts. And I've included here 2 maps. One is the Panther Focus Area Zones, and this is what FWC and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service use as we're looking at projects and how we are both mitigating for any panther habitat impacts and if there are opportunities for us to enhance the panther habitat and the connectivity of their range. On the right side is the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation's map. You can see they're very similar. The Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation is partnering with agencies and other NGOs and organizations in order to help identify areas where we can create that connectivity for panthers. And so that's also part of how we incorporate our thinking with our projects and making sure that we're having synergy and collaboration on these efforts as we develop projects moving forward. And so I mentioned that we have a 400,000 acre feet of storage necessary for this watershed. The planned and in operations, we have just about 4,000 acre feet of storage right now. In planned projects, we have another 220,000 acre feet. That includes the C-43 reservoir, which is the bulk of that. So that means we've got about 175,000 to 200,000 acre feet of storage still necessary. And so later this year, we are going to be putting out a solicitation in the next couple of months looking for storage. We have prioritized storage based on those assessments that we talked about just a few moments ago in the Watershed Protection Plan and that are outlined in more detail in the SFER. And so I'd encourage you to talk to our scientists more about this. We have folks that can go into great detail as to why we are focusing on the West Caloosahatchee, but this solicitation will prioritize storage in the West Basin of the Caloosahatchee and look for projects that we can implement quickly to help us tackle some of that additional storage needed. And so look forward to that. So now we'll move to the fourth bucket. And this is for your consideration for a resolution as we move toward the end of the presentation here. So the first grant project, so this bucket, these are grants. So we have the Basin Management Action Plan. In that Basin Management Action Plan that DEP oversees and administers, the Basin Management Action Plan includes a list of projects. Some of those projects are done by the Water Management District, some by the other coordinating agencies. It also includes activities like the programs that DEP and FDACs implement, like BMPs and best management practices and regulatory requirements. Those are part of the programs that are implemented as well. But it also includes projects, grant projects, that other organizations like counties and improvement districts can incorporate into the overall plan. And so these three projects are grant projects that are of that nature. The first one is the Frank Mann Preserve. This project is being implemented by Lehigh Acres Municipal Services Improvement District. Their short nickname is LAMSID, so you may have heard of them referred to in that way. And so this project is a $15 million project that is anticipated to provide some storage of 3,000 to 4,000 acre feet on an average annual basis, as well as remove some of the nutrients in this watershed. It also helps to connect to their other facilities, providing additional operational flexibility for them, aquifer recharge, and flood protection for those communities around this area. The second project is to be implemented by Lee County. And so this project is expected to have storage as well as nutrient removal. It's a little bit smaller of a project. This is a $2.5 million project that will enhance water quality, flood control, enhance wildlife habitat. And I'd also like to mention that with these grant projects, there's also great recreational opportunities for the communities that are in this area and that surround these projects. And so these are really great projects for the communities for multiple reasons, right? The recreational opportunities, wildlife, enhanced habitat, operational flexibility, flood protection, in addition to the aquifer recharge and the benefits to the watershed in terms of storage. The third project is the Palm Creek Lower Filter Marsh. This project is also being implemented by Lee County and is about a $1.5 million project. Again, some of the same similar benefits. And so these are really great projects that are looking forward to starting construction later this year. Again, how these grant programs work is this is funding that is provided by the state, and we help these organizations administer the funding. And so what your resolution includes is authorization for us to enter into those agreements. So each of these projects will have two agreements. One is between us and DEP to receive the funding, and then one is between us and the implementing entity, and that is for us to verify that the work is being done and that it is appropriate for the funding to be released through us to that entity. And so that helps the money move and also incorporate all of the projects into that bigger picture. And so back to the bucket of us implementing projects. So this is sort of our bread and butter, and probably the biggest contribution that is visible that people see us delivering when it comes to these watershed protection plans. And these are the projects that the district does. On district lands, we design, construct, and operate these projects. And so the Lake Hickpachee project, the phase 1 that you can see in blue on this project is, so let me orient you to the picture a little bit. So the blue line that you see at the bottom of the picture, so that's the Caloosahatchee River. And so this project is just north of the Caloosahatchee River. The phase 1 of the Lake Hickpachee project is already in operation. And so this project was originally conceived in order to direct runoff from the C19 basin and to help it to rehydrate the historic lake bed of Hickpachee. So Lake Hickpachee used to be a lot bigger, had these huge marshes around it, and as we drained some of these areas and made them available for agriculture, we reduced the level of water and the amount of water that was incorporated with Lake Hickpachee. And so the phase 1 project was to help rehydrate that portion of Lake Hickpachee. And that has been very successful, and it's been in operation, and we've been receiving benefits from that project. So then we had the opportunity to acquire additional lands in this area. And so phase 2 was conceived and designed. And so phase 2 will bring additional water for us to be able to pull off of the C43 River, the canal, so off of the Caloosahatchee River, store it into this flow equalization basin that is phase 2, move it through phase 2. You can see the arrows on this slide that help the water move more slowly. That will help it uptake additional nutrients from the river before it's discharged through the phase 1 project and then incorporated into that spreader basin, the spreader canal, and through the historic marshes associated with Lake Hickpachee and then back to the river. So that's how this project works. And what we have for your consideration today is a construction contract for us to implement that phase 2 project. And so the phase 2 project incorporates 2 cells of the flow equalization basin, totaling a storage capacity of about 8,000 acre feet. It also includes a pump station that has 3 75 CFS pumps, some culverts, the inflow-outflow canal that will convey the water from the C43 canal up into the flow equalization basin, as well as the seepage management system that protects the surrounding agricultural areas from that additional water that we'll be storing in the flow equalization basin. And so I'm not going to move to the next slide just yet because I have 2 resolution slides, and the first resolution slide is going to be for the grant projects. So the second resolution slide is for this project. So I'm going to flip through the grant one for just a second so I can tell you more about this one. And so this resolution for the Lake Hickpachee project is based on the bids that we opened on the 4th of March. And so we are recommending award to Phillips and Jordan for $126,074,200. This is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this project, and so we're recommending award so that we can move to construction. I will mention that we obviously have a completed design. We are ready to start on construction. Phillips and Jordan is ready to get going, but we are waiting on permits. And so we have been watching those closely. Right now, the status of the permit for this project is that we are waiting on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to complete their biological opinion so that the Corps can issue the 404 permit. They are working hard to expedite that review and get it to us, but we are looking at an early May timeframe. And so as part of our bid process, we do ask our contractors to hold their bids. And so that that is what's in play a little bit with this project, but that time frame is within what we have asked them to hold their bids for. And so we anticipate being able to issue a notice to proceed on this project not later than May, and we are looking at potential opportunities to start sooner than that. And I'll just go back now to the grant resolution once again. This is to authorize us entering into the agreements with the entities who will be implementing the grant, as well as the agreements that we will need to enter into with DEP for the funding source. And so again, those are the three projects: the Frank Mann Preserve, the Palm Creek Lower Filter Marsh, and the Bob Janes Preserve project.
Well, thanks very much, Ms. Reynolds. Do we have comments on these?
We do, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear from Caitlin Newcamp.
Hello again. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and thank you for the presentation, Jen. It was very informative. So Audubon would like to convey our full support for the Caloosahatchee River water quality improvement projects. These projects are critical in addressing the water quality challenges facing the Caloosahatchee and its watershed, from which half the nutrients and flows to the estuary emanate. Specifically, the Frank Mann Preserve project, which spans 627 acres, will convert an existing mine lake into a filter marsh and stormwater reservoir, and will play a pivotal role in improving water quality in the regions. Lehigh Acres was built in a way that unintentionally created challenging hydrology for the region, cutting off flows to the south and destroying wetland storage and creating polluted discharges. The planned restoration and improvements from this project will help enhance the health of the river. Additionally, the Palm Creek Lower Filter Marsh and Bob Janes project are also key to ensuring that water quality improvements extend across the watershed. With their expected completion in 2027, these projects will have meaningful impact on reducing nutrient loading and improving aquatic ecosystems in the region. Finally, we express our support for the Lake Okeechobee Hydrologic Enhancement Project in Glades County. As part of NEEP, this will provide significant ecological and hydrologic benefits to the Caloosahatchee and its surrounding watershed by expanding the existing FEB by 2,000 acres and increasing its storage capacity by over 8,000 acre-feet to better manage stormwater runoff. By capturing and gradually releasing this runoff back into the river through the lake, this project will help restore the natural hydrology of the historic lakebed, improving water quality and supporting wetland restoration. In addition to these benefits, the project also supports compliance with minimum flows and levels requirements and will provide valuable public access features, offering additional recreational opportunities for residents and visitors. So Audubon, Florida strongly supports these projects. We believe that they will significantly enhance water quality, restore ecosystems, and benefit both wildlife and local communities in the watershed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. We'll move over to our Zoom participants, starting with Mark Mora, followed by Matt DePaulis. Mr. Mora, please unmute your mic.
Good morning, Chair and board members. Mark Mora here, joining you from Lee County. I'm here with Roland Ottolini, our Director of Natural Resources, on behalf of the County Commission, as well as our County Manager, Dave Harner. We'd like to make a few comments. First one regarding discussion item 25A. We would like to thank the Water District for bringing this forward and the administrative support for these very important projects that are designed to address excess nutrients into the Caloosahatchee. They will help us meet our Basin Management Action Plan requirements for total nitrogen. We would also like to acknowledge and thank Senate President Albritton, Representative Botana, Governor DeSantis, and the FDEP for their assistance in making these funds available. We'd also like to extend our support for item 25B for phase 2 of Lake Okeechobee Hydrologic Enhancement. This project will add to the success of phase 1 and provide much needed additional storage and water quality treatment in the Caloosahatchee Basin. We appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. We'll hear next from Matt DePaulis, followed by Holly Milbrandt. Mr. DePaulis, please unmute.
Hi, everyone. This is Matt DePaulis, the Environmental Policy Director for the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. First of all, I'd just like to commend the staff. We're in full support of these projects. We love the great work that's being done at the district and specifically in the Caloosahatchee watershed. I think this is exactly what we need over here on the West Coast. I want to commend the staff for not only the work done on getting these projects to where they are today, but also to start from a strong foundation of validating our water budget goals, ensuring that that 400,000 number is the number of acre feet that we're actually looking for. That was a necessary component of this, and I'm glad that they started off there. And also that they accept that we're about 174,000 acre feet short and have a solution for how we're going to get there. I think all this work being done is amazing. We know that when we're getting these releases from Lake Okeechobee, that those are the number one thing that's on the forefront of everyone's mind. But when we're not getting the releases, it's these nutrients coming from the watershed that are really providing a lot of that nutrient loading to the Caloosahatchee that makes its way to the estuary. And this has been validated by recent research from our marine lab that we know that's where those nutrients are coming from. So it's projects like these that are really going to get us over the finish line to balance our own water budget. I think that the more we can see these creative solutions, these projects that are not necessarily giant boxes of water that are taking up a lot of land, but ways that we can integrate these projects into the community, the more filter marshes, the more public parks that we can use to also boost our storage and improve our water quality is a great solution in our mind. And I'd also like to just take a second to wish Lawrence the best on his next endeavors and thank him for all the great work that he's done and helping me to understand the intricacies of this complex system as well. So thanks to all the staff and a special thanks to Lawrence Glenn as well.
Thank you, Mr. DePaulis. We'll hear next from Holly Milbrandt. Ms. Milbrandt, you may unmute.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Goss and members of the Governing Board. This is Holly Milbrandt. I'm the Natural Resources Director for the City of Sanibel. And we are a community that is located in that coastal basin of the Caloosahatchee watershed. On behalf of the city, I also want to thank Jennifer Reynolds for a really excellent and informative presentation and would encourage the board to approve the resolutions that are before you today for the 3 water quality projects in Lee County and the Lake Hickpachee expansion project. We thank the district for your work in the Caloosahatchee watershed, not only keeping the C-43 reservoir project moving forward, but also the other projects before you today, which will provide additional critical storage and treatment in the Caloosahatchee watershed. As you heard, the C-43 reservoir, which is a tremendous project, provides only half of the necessary storage that's identified in the Caloosahatchee Watershed Protection Plan. So these projects are critically important to meeting the goals of the plan, and we thank you for moving them forward today.
Thank you, Ms. Milbrandt. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our public comment on this item.
Thanks. Does anyone have any comments for Ms. Reynolds?
I have a question. This is Charlotte.
Yeah, go ahead, Carmen.
First of all, Jennifer, thank you for the excellent presentation. It really comes into laser-like focus for me, being having been in the field to look at some of these projects, right? And now to see your presentation pull it all together, it really has come full circle. I think these are all excellent projects, and they have my full support. But I'm concerned about how we get there, since we have 174,000 acres of additional storage that we need. And when I add up these projects, while they're positive in helping us get there, we're looking at maybe 7,500 acres of storage. So I am concerned about the area that we're looking at in the Caloosahatchee watershed. It's rapidly growing, and I'm concerned about how we are identifying those other opportunities, and maybe our partners can help us in this regard as well. But we need to get more, certainly, in the Caloosahatchee watershed, and there's a lot of challenges, and maybe you can address that a little bit, Jennifer.
Sure. I think you're spot on, right? We're only halfway there. But I will mention that right now, we only have 4,000 acre feet of storage, right? And we're about to have 220,000 acre feet of storage. And so we know that we can do this because we know that we can make progress, sometimes with big projects, sometimes with smaller projects. One of the things that we are exploring in the Caloosahatchee River watershed is this idea of rapid infiltration. And so I mentioned the Four Corners project earlier. That's a pretty small footprint in terms of acres. And in fact, their rapid infiltration area is only 22 acres. But that provides an opportunity for almost 20,000 acre feet of storage on an average annual basis. And so when you start looking at if we can find other projects that have a rapid infiltration geologic aspect to them, that's a huge opportunity in this watershed that doesn't take a whole lot of acres out of other projects or other uses, but could really help us move the needle. And so we're hoping with the solicitation as well as efforts through our assessment team here at the district that maybe we can find some additional rapid infiltration opportunities.
Well, I appreciate that because that, and maybe our partners have some ideas too that I'm sure they've shared with you or will continue to share as they come up with those ideas, because I think it's really important because that area is growing so much that if we're missing these opportunities to plan more storage, pretty soon, you know, they'll be off the table and we won't have those chances. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Mr.
Anyone else?
Chair, it's
Yeah.
Jay.
Go ahead.
Jennifer, thanks. I think these, I too think these are great projects. Can from a cost perspective, can we just talk a little bit about this? In the briefing, I think you guys told me the district estimate was $115 million for Okeechobee hydraulic.
That's correct. That's the that was the district's estimate. Yes.
And I think that we typically are doing a great job at, and I think the vendors that we've been fortunate to work with typically do a good job in excuse me, in coming in, you know, at or below. In this case, obviously, we're slightly above. So maybe it might be worth just adding a little conversation about how you guys on the procurement side, and maybe this is not exactly to you, and I'm sorry if it's sidelining a bit, but how you guys are seeing projects price recently in terms of material costs and labor. And I think that most of our projects, you know, are again still very much in line with estimates, and I'm not too concerned about this one. But any thoughts as we go forward with you know, pricing that we should be cognizant of?
So I think generally when we open bids, we generally see the bids in the range or in the vicinity of our estimates. In this case, this one was a little bit higher. This is a sort of remote location, and there's a lot of work right now for these types of contractors. And so what we are seeing is that in addition to increased material prices that I think everyone is aware of, not just on eggs, but on things like cement and steel and even equipment prices, all of those things are still increasing. We're seeing increases in all of those prices, and that makes a difference with our projects. So in this case, we only received 2 bids. The one that we are recommending at $126 million. The second bid was actually at over $150 million. And so That's quite a spread as well. And so we think that the location of this project had something to do with that because it is a more remote location. And so as contractors are bidding on things like that, they take that into account because they have to think about how they're going to leverage resources and potentially use them between other work that they're doing on other projects. And the places that those materials and that those pieces of equipment are available. And so those are the types of things that come into play when you're looking at a project like this. And we'll continue to evaluate those things and try and find efficiencies where we can.
Okay, I appreciate that, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more comments from board members? I'd just like to say thank you very much. A great presentation. I appreciate it. As someone who lives downriver, I really appreciate it. These are wonderful projects, and I'm looking forward to them. Can you tell me what's on the Okeechobee site right now? Is it a grove or is it a sugar field or what is it?
It's vacant land right now. So we had a lease on that land, and we've terminated that lease late last calendar year in anticipation of this construction project, providing enough time for us to transition from the lease to the project area. Also on the site, obviously, is the active Phase 1 project.
Okay. Is it former agriculture? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering, I'm trying to figure out what FWS is looking at. I mean, if it's about to become a wetland or a flow equalization basin, I'm trying to figure out what it was. So it's going from former ag land to a flow equalization basin.
Correct.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
got a question.
Mr. Bergeron.
I really appreciate your understanding that this area is in the wildlife corridor and it's primary panther habitat. It's the connectivity in the wildlife corridor. Extremely important, and we always keep that in mind. I want to thank you for that. What's the depth of the water that you're going to store in this area?
In the Lake Okeechobee project, it'll be shallow storage. So on average, it'll be about 2 feet.
Well, as we continue to go into the future, I think this is a great project. And we're in the wildlife corridor, the most pristine property that properly managed and properly protected. It certainly provides for water supply and in the future and a quality of life to have growth in the future in the right areas. When we enter into these water storage on the private properties, are we looking at storage that's compatible with the natural environment, from uplands to wetlands? Because when you're talking about, you get 2 for 1 when you do that. You storing on property at water levels greater than natural to the environment, to the wildlife, obviously you get a negative effect to what you're trying to accomplish. If you can accomplish storage, but as we continue to go with private property owners that are trying to help us achieve water quality, I think it's important that we establish on these natural areas in the wildlife corridor that what we're storing is compatible with the environment and the wildlife.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's really one of the things that we are looking for as we partner with private landowners, is not making a swimming pool out of their property, but instead helping them look at how do we design features associated with their property that turn back the drainage of our flood control system and allow a return to a more historic hydrology on their property. So where wetlands stay wet most of the year and where uplands stay dry most of the year, and then the hydrologic nuances in between.
Now, that's so important because you're getting 2 for 1. You're rehydrating to a natural. You're benefiting from the storage, but you're not destroying the environment. So I'm glad you're doing that. That's really, really important. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. If there's no further discussion, someone entertain a motion for 2025-0312?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Wait, yeah, you're allowed to vote on.
Oh,
no, you're not voting on this one.
I'm
Sorry, that
abstaining.
was my
Sorry
fault.
about that.
I should not have called on you. Mr.
Thank
Bergeron abstains. I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Butler?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
I'll take the motion.
Thank you. Can you?
I'll make the motion,
Thanks.
resolution 2025-0312.
Thank you. I should have caught that.
Well, I withdraw my motion and I abstain from voting.
Understood. I've called the question. I voted yes. Mr. Butler's voted yes. Vice Chairman?
Yes.
Nice work, Chauncey. Yes.
Thanks. I try. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
That passes unanimously with Mr. Bergeron abstaining.
Mr. Chairman, for clarity, that was resolution number 2025-0311.
Said 0312 up there, but
Okay, yep, that was my motion, was
Okay.
the grants. That's what we were doing, right?
yeah, I just called 0312,
Oh, you did? Okay.
but that's what was on the screen, so that's what I read. However, let's go.
Apologies.
No, don't apologize. Let's say, so that was, we did just vote on 0311, so that's what your motion was 0311.
0311 was my motion.
Then we're fine. So let's move to the next one. Next one is 2025-0312.
This is Jay. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second on resolution 2025-0312. And Mr. Bergeron, are you allowed to vote on this one?
Which one are we on?
0312.
Yes.
Yes, he is. All right. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Bergeron? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Bergeron votes yes. I vote yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Excuse me, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jen. Sorry for the confusion. We'll now go to staff reports. I'm sorry, no, we won't. We'll go to water. I'm totally messed up. Technical reports. And Lawrence, you can't leave. You've totally messed me up. The last time I get to say Mr. Minnick and Mr. Glenn.
All right, so here we go with the final act of the Glenn Show. So starting where we always do, with the rainfall, you can see back last several months, we've all had below average rain. So it's been a dry season, and the month of March hasn't really started any better. So you can see over here on the left-hand side, so far into the month, we're 13 days in now? But as of 2 days ago, we'd only received about a quarter of the amount of rain that we typically receive during the month of March, with some of the driest areas being right there in the central portion of the district and then all the way down there in the Keys. But overall, for the overall dry season going back to October of last year, you can see that we've received just less than half of the amount of rainfall that you typically get during a dry season, and that's very indicative of the La Nina type conditions that we forecasted way back then in October, November timeframe. But you can see how it's kind of played out over the district as a whole. Just these two areas, Upper St. Lucie and Lower Kissimmee, have had a little bit more rain than some of the other portions of the district, and that's typically because as those winter fronts come down, they sort of stall right there just north of Lake Okeechobee. Mr. Butler probably has some good experience with that. But that's why those two areas have a little bit more rainfall than areas farther to the south. But looking up at the upper chain of lakes, you can see those lakes are coming down nicely. East Lake and West Lake, trying to get down there to their summer pools by June 1st. For the most part, we're not moving a whole lot. There is some water moving out of those upper lakes through the structures themselves. It's on the order of maybe 100, 200 CFS, not much at all. But primarily Mother Nature is doing its job for us, and as you watch those lakes recede back down. Which takes us over to the Kissimmee. You can see Kissimmee has been kind of well below its regulation schedule, and this is the new increment 1 schedule. And kind of been bumping around, got a little bit of rainfall here that bumped it up, but you can see right about there, we're getting ready to cross down into that next lower zone under the increment 1 schedule. That's the zone called B4. And the way operations sort of change when you cross that line a little bit lower and get down into that next lower zone is right now we're managing the river between 300 and 1,400 cubic feet per second coming out of Lake Kissimmee through S65A structure. But once we cross that line, then that sort of switches down to the lower end and closer to the 300 maintenance flow down the river. For the most part, we've been doing the 300 the last several days, if not a week. But now it would be hardwired into the schedule, so to speak, and that change to stick closer to that 300 cubic feet per second. And with that, Mr. Glenn, how's the river doing?
Thank you. Before we get started on this, I just want to say I hope y'all can get an opportunity to go out and see the poster session for the South Florida Environmental Report. We have world-class scientists that are out there standing next to their work that you can interact with, and they really enjoy talking about the amazing work that they do here at the district. And then the second thing is, Caitlin Newcamp alluded to it earlier, that we published the South Florida Wading Bird Report yesterday. That's edited by two of our incredible scientists, Dr. Mark Cook and Mike Baranski, and it covers wading bird nesting success over the past 2 seasons, and it's a fantastic report. But we'll get going. We'll start up at the top of the system at the Kissimmee River. You see that we've had a progression of drying coming from this month into this next month. So we've talked about over here, it takes about 1,400 CFS, which is this red line right here, in order to inundate the floodplain. So with only 400 CFS coming down, the floodplain is definitely drying down at this particular time. Dissolved oxygen, however, is the 7-day mean is 7.7 milligrams per liter. You see that way up here, and it's well above the limit for concern for aquatic organisms requiring oxygen in the water.
So looking at how water's moved around the northern portion of the system, you can see right about here, overall inflows into Lake Okeechobee is just less than 1.5 million acre feet. But over the last month, there really hasn't been any inflows to Lake Okeechobee, again, indicative of that drier weather that we've seen north of the lake. Over on the east coast, there's been about just over 300,000 acre feet delivered to the St. Lucie estuary from the C44 basin and Lake Okeechobee, with roughly half of that 320,000 coming from Lake Okeechobee itself. And add to the estuary contributions, roughly 250,000 acre feet from the C23-24 basins, and up around the Fort Pierce area, just less than 120,000 acre feet going out of C25 basin. Over on the west coast in total, to the Caloosahatchee estuary, there's been about 1.7 million acre feet delivered, with roughly 522,000 acre feet having originated back in Lake Okeechobee. So what does the future trend of the lake look like? Everybody hopefully is used to seeing the conditional position analysis by now, and what we tend to, or at least I tend to focus in on to give you a good idea, is that roughly 50% probability line. You can see how it goes forward in time. Still projecting drier conditions until we reach sometime in May, and then you get that transition into June of the wet season, but it's projected to be dry at least for the month of March, and then drier or below average conditions as you go through the months of April and May. But our projection right now, based on the modeling, has it getting right around there at that 50% probability, just I'll call that 11.5 by June 1st. And for anybody that participated in the weekly call this week with the Army Corps of Engineers, this is the slide that they presented on their forecast for recovery operations. And you can see that there's 3 different scenarios represented by those 3 dotted lines, and then the information of where the scenarios would end up given the assumptions down here at the bottom of the slide, sort of leads you to somewhere between that, call it 11.8 and 11, based on continuing recovery operations. As we've talked about in the last month, it's something that we are closely watching in partnership with the Corps of Engineers and input from all of the stakeholders on conditions within the estuary. We're looking for those indications of the oyster spawning and the spat having initiated. And once we see indications of those spat having been initiation, then we would be looking to reduce flows to the 2 estuaries and sort of dial back the recovery operations. Simultaneously to that, we are also given our primary responsibility for allocation of water supply in the state of Florida. The Water Management District is paying a close eye to water supply and its future forecast and projections given the trajectory that we see the lake is on and the forecast that I just went through. So with that, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you. If you look at what's going into and out of the lake itself, we have a lot more water going out than we have going in. And we also have 2,800 CFS coming out through evapotranspiration. So as we talk about recovery operations and how the lake functions, it typically is going to drop about 3 feet from the end of the wet season to the end of the dry season. And the first half of that really is done mostly through operations, and that's kind of where we are now. And the second half really goes out through evapotranspiration and water supply. So I think for recovery operations, we've done an excellent job, or the Army Corps has, in trying to use that operational flexibility to move it out through operations. And now, the natural processes are going to come back in, especially with ET, and helping to take additional water out. And here's the ecological envelope of where we are going currently. If we would be below that, but we are in recovery operations, so that's what we look like with recovery operations, and we're smack dab, in the middle of that, and with a trajectory down. And we talk about what are the durations that we're looking for. We're looking for 90 days at or below 12 feet. We're looking at 60 days at or below 11.5 feet. And so if we were to, that trajectory, has it happening around May. And then with those lines that you see projected out, that'd be a 135-day possibility if you stayed within the envelope within its largest bound at the 12-foot target, and 105 days at the 11.5. So where this is going is looking extremely beneficial for recovery of SAV for the lake. When we started, it was a little more iffy, and Mother Nature has really come through and provided conditions to allow the lake to drop the way that it has. And if you look at the stage, the water depth assessment tool figure on the right-hand side, we're at 13.43, so the marsh is starting to dry down. And ecologically, that's very beneficial, which I'll go through and show you some of the response by organisms. One thing that everybody is interested in or concerned with is, as we make releases, what is happening with cyanobacterial blooms on the lake. And currently, we're getting a little flicker on the west-hand side, but you see that's still in the very low potential. We conducted sampling last week actually, and the water quality samples, there's no dominant taxa, so microcystin, cystis isn't in full bloom. That's not going to happen, hopefully, for a couple more months. And no toxins were detected, so that's good news as water is being released. Remember, we saw this little pixelation happen again. Water temperatures were approaching that 25 degrees Celsius level where blooms, especially microcystis, wants to bloom. February was kind of warm, and now it cooled back off, and so we're very much below that temperature that really initiates blooms. Looking at wading bird use on the lake, here's where that declining stage is beneficial for them. The color chart that you see over here is a habitat suitability index saying if I'm in this blue, light blue, that's the optimal depth for foraging for wading birds. And I told you in the last meeting that once we get to 14 and below, that's really when use starts to uptick on the lake. And that's exactly what we're seeing in our last survey, that there's 5,217 birds using Lake Okeechobee. This graph over here shows the interquartile range. We're a little below the 5-year average, but we're in that range. So wading bird use is going pretty well on the lake, and that's because of that lower lake level. Going over to the St. Lucie and looking at conditions there, the upper graphic shows in the blue, those are releases from the lake, and there's about 520 CFS of the 1,300 CFS that has been released to the Caloosahatchee this past week. You look at the salinity setup, and so here's the arms of the St. Lucie, and they were a bit fresh. Now they're starting to get a little bit more into the mesohaline zone, which is this 5 to 18, which is more preferred. And you see where we are in relation to the optimal salinity conditions for adult oysters, and we're looking good there for adults. Now we talk about spat, and we talk about the spawn that occurs. And so those, basically you're gonna have a spawn, and you have a free floating larvae that is out there, and that's the most susceptible to flow. So if flows, large flows are happening, it possibly can push those newly released larvae out of the area where there is actual oyster bed to land on to become spat and become part of the oyster reef. So we're concerned at this time, as that starts, are flows compatible or incompatible with that portion? Also, what are flows doing for salinity? They have a higher salinity need at about 15. So as we're looking at this where we are now, and we have our samplers out last week and this week, we'll get those data in hopefully by the end of the week to help decision-making for next week. It's probably about the time to start ramping down. And I imagine that next week we'll come to the board or we'll, in our meetings, we will talk about, hey, I think we're seeing spat. It's time to ramp down on this side. Wanted to bring some submerged aquatic vegetation data to you. What's going on over on this side? And so you have two different sites here. You have the St. Lucie Inlet site, and you have Willoughby Creek site over here. And in this top graph, it's showing percent cover. And so if we take where we are currently and you go over to the side, bar graphs are hard because you have to put it in context. 10% cover isn't great. We would like to see a lot more cover, but if we go back and we compare that to the other Februaries, I want you to notice the orange and blue ellipses that are going across there. That's totally for Maricruz's benefit, for Go Gators. Has nothing to do with the data itself. But if you do look at those, you see that this year is higher than the past 3 and just a little bit lower than the best it's been in February in 5 years. If you take a look at the next site, which is Willoughby Creek, it's the highest that it's been in February in 5 years. So that's a good thing. We would love to see a lot more, but that's what we're seeing. So we're seeing a good trend in February going into this growing season. And then in the bottom, you're looking at the relative species composition. So what species are out there and in how much abundance? And in both sites, Haliduli, which is in the green color here, it's shoalgrass. It's winning the race. Shoalgrass is one of those pioneer species. It goes out and colonizes first, and then it makes conditions great and says, hey, everybody else, come on once we get this place settled. So it's looking good over there going into this growing season. As we go to the Caloosahatchee side, you also see that blue color showing lake inflows. We have a really good salinity gradient set up where the top or the upper estuary is fresh, then we get into that mesohaline zone, and then we get saltier as we reach the mouth. And that's a wonderful setup for salinity. And as you look over here for adult oysters, we also see that we're at the top of the optimal range for Cape Coral, and then Shell Point is a little higher. Something to think about when you're talking also about on both sides, for especially probably more so on the St. Lucie side. I said 15 is what we needed for the larvae in order for them to survive. We also don't want it to go too high, because, and that's talking about salinity, because that's when marine predators come in, and here you have these little sessile attached new spat that become just the buffet for anybody that wants to go. So that's something else that we'll keep in consideration for the St. Lucie side especially. And then looking at submerged aquatic vegetation on this side, you have the upper part up here, which is usually dominated by tape grass, and then you get more seagrasses down here at the bottom. And there's a distinct break in these data. And there's orange and blue again, markers. So Hurricane Ian came through, and we've seen a depressed growth rate over there since Hurricane Ian came in. Now, salinities are in the appropriate range for all the different species that are growing, but it was really physical disturbance that was the big deal. Plants either got ripped out or covered, and so that their recovery over there has been a bit slow. And there we see that color scheme again, but we see that up in the top end, it's having trouble. Tape grass isn't coming back right now. You do see it in some places, but not at our sampling locations, but it's just having that trouble getting started again after Hurricane Ian. And then if we look at species composition down at the most saline site, which is down here, you have this dance that happens between Haliduli and Thalassia. So Thalassia, if you think Florida Bay and you think about those lush seagrass beds, that's Thalassia, that's the climax community, that's where these seagrass beds are trying to get to. But since there's so much kind of interplay in there with different kind of conditions, those two kind of work together to keep that seagrass bed healthy. And back to John.
So how water's moved around the southern portion of the system, you can see there the outflows from Lake Okeechobee have been just over 1.5 million acre feet, with a large portion of that having been within the last month. Again, now that we're in the dry season, you see those numbers start to accelerate as the outflows from Lake Okeechobee. But into the water conservation areas, there's been about 1.7 million acre feet flown into the water conservation areas from all three locations, north, west, and east. And down at the bottom, again, about 1.5 million acre feet having been moved out of the conservation area into the park, inclusive of some of this return seepage over here on the eastern boundary of the park. For the lower East Coast and that runoff from direct rainfall, been about 2.5 million acre feet from the entire East Coast. Obviously, the vast majority of that was, several months ago during the rainy season, as it hasn't had a whole lot of rain to date, as you saw in some of the previous graphics. But looking at the stormwater treatment areas, so far you can see the stormwater treatment areas have processed just over 1.1 million acre feet this water year. But what I will draw your attention to is this bar down here at the bottom that keeps on growing month by month. And now with the drier weather, there's a lot of water moving south from Lake Okeechobee. And if you follow this number across 194,000 acre feet, you'll see that all the way back to 1995, that is the second highest total in the dry season for moving water south from Lake Okeechobee. So I just want to bring that out to everybody's attention. The one that folks tend to look at there is 2015, where there's 380,000. Again, it was climate driven there in 2015, a very dry season that allowed a lot of that water to move. You're experiencing a similar phenomenon this year with a very dry season, La Nina conditions that allows that water to move. But with that, Mr. Glenn.
John already mentioned the volumes that have gone through and the volumes that have come through from the lake. This is the time of year where we get into the STAs and do a lot of vegetation rehab work. We're trying to get them ready for the wet season coming up, and you'll notice that over here all of the STAs are at their target elevation, with STA 5-6 being a little low. And when we look to move lake water through the STAs, we look to the central flowways. So we look to STA 2 and STA 3-4. And that graphic at the top, the table shows you that the bulk of the water that we have been sending is through STA 3-4. So as I wanted to take you through each one, so we have 600 CFS currently going through STA 3-4, and that's 200 CFS in each flowway. This is a very busy slide, and it's busy for a reason, because I wanted to show you just the amount of work that we do, how stressed these systems do get during the dry season, and why we do curtail flow for specifically for STA 2 and 3-4. Why do we do it? And really, this upstream nuisance vegetation and the inflow canals is a really big deal for STA 2. So we have this one plant, crested floating heart, that is such a problem for us currently. It is a plant that it'll grow in the intake canal. It's stem, and it has a part that floats. And any part of that plant that breaks off, whether it's the root that gets uprooted, the stem that goes in there, or the leaf parts itself, can get into the STA and grow. And these are plants that we don't want in the STA. They're not helpful for phosphorus production. We want to keep them out of the STA to the greatest extent possible. So we have our management team out there, that are taking care of this issue. And as we get to a really good treatment on this, then we always are looking for what is the potential for increasing flow back through STA 2 to help with recovery operations. And so the same thing for the STA 1 complex, doing a lot of work in there, and they're also taking any runoff that we have from the landscape itself, and then we're putting 100 CFS through the first flowway of STA 5-6. These are some new graphics. I used to have a table up there that said, what is current performance of each STA? And I thought these graphics were a lot better in showing how the STAs perform, how events, when they occur during, I'm talking rain events, when they occur during the season, is very important. And I'm going to use STA 2 as an example. So over here we have STA 2. We had that really large rain event in June. And that event put so much water into the STAs, all of them, at concentrations that were well above what they normally take. And what that does is this blue line is the year-to-date average. So you get this 1 point up here that is so high in concentration that it takes the rest of the water year to try to fight it to get down to the level that we're trying to get, which is Q-bell. And you see that this is the 28-day average. So the STA starts performing really, really well, but our compliance number is based on the annual. So the STAs do a really great job of what they're intended to do, but how water is delivered to them, and each one of them, if you look at all these different graphics, and there's more on this side, each one of them behaves differently. So when we're talking about where are we going to put water, how's it going to go through, which ones are performing, it's based on antecedent conditions of what its use was, what the soil types are, what are we seeing with microtopography, how are they configured. So they all have a little nuance. And that's where it's so important. We have an excellent team here at the district that meets weekly to say, what are conditions, how well are they performing, what can we go in there and do during the dry season to help them meet that peak performance that they're going to have when we reach Q-bell. So it's from the outside, it's like all STAs are created equal. On the inside, we know they're not, and we do a lot of work, a lot of discussion with some really brilliant minds here to make sure that we're taking the time to rehab them in the dry season and get them in their peak performance during the wet season. Question?
All right, I hate to hit it real quick, but Lawrence, John, you show that, and you show the, I'll call it a spring flush. What projects in the queue, what do we have that will help capture, like a flow equalization, capture those early flows? And the projects in the queue, do you expect operational criteria to be able to kick in and provide assistance. And I guess I'm really talking the EAA reservoir. Is that going to help?
So I think the one part that you touched on there towards the end is the operational criteria. That is, as Lawrence alluded to, where we are doing a lot of investigations right now. As he talked about STA2 and that big spike at the beginning of the wet season with that excessive rainfall and how it drove the rest of the compliance concentrations for the rest of this water year. Those are the things that we're looking at on better ways to manage those large rainfall events and redistribute some of those flows around if possible. We've done, as you know, a lot of work in the Everglades agricultural area, making some of those interconnections through the Bowles and Cross Canals between the Hillsborough and North New River Canal. We currently have dredging work ongoing in the North New River right now to be able to increase some of that conveyance capacity to help redistribute those flows during these big rain events. So that's what we're spending a lot of time doing. We meet every 2 weeks with Lawrence and his team for the STAs and talk about operational management and how to best operate the STAs and avoid some of these big spikes like that and try to get a little ahead of it. They've also developed some forecasting tools that we hadn't had in prior years that show a lot of promise on being able to better manage and distribute some of those flows and predict where you would end up in 6 months, halfway through a water year or towards the end of the water year. So I think we've got a lot of knowledge coming online here and prior to coming up on the compliance period associated with the QBEL that we'll bring to bear and be able to comply with our requirements.
Okay.
I have a question. The water that's coming out of the lake obviously is higher in nutrients than the water in the EAA?
Depending on the location. Not all lake water is higher, no.
Not all of lake water is higher than the EAA
Correct.
water?
Correct. And also that depends on the year. So you can look back in the record for years where there have been tropical events that have gone over Lake Okeechobee that stirs up a lot of that muck and that sediment down in the bottom of Lake Okeechobee. And you can have spikes in the concentrations that come out. But for general rule of thumb, water that is delivered, and that's why when you look, Lawrence was talking about STA 3-4, we try to generally deliver most of that water, that 600 CFS, coming down the Miami Canal, because for the most part, the concentrations coming out of the S354 structure are lower compared to some of the other structures.
Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to move the inflows into the central and on into Everglades National Park to match the outflows down at the trail. And if you look at our of trying to achieve the 2.5 million acre feet of water that flowed naturally by gravity, you're looking at about 8,000 cubic feet per second of flow moving in this river of grass. That would match the inflows to the outflows to achieve the 2.5 million acre feet. And you have to take the volume that's coming in from the C11, the S9, which I'm not sure we have numbers on that.
We do, it was on the previous slides.
We do have numbers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how about the volume coming down the L28 and the L28 interceptor, which obviously are going to be backfilled as part of Western Everglades. So a lot of that water volume is going to slow down as when we complete, obviously, the Western Everglades project. But the ultimate goal here is to reach the quality and match the inflows to the outflows in a natural way by gravity. That's the ultimate goal as we continue to move water south And that was my point earlier on, is making sure that the Tamiami Trail doesn't back up this water with its natural flow to Florida Bay as we continue to address the bottleneck down at the trail that's created substantial impacts to the Central Everglades and the Big Cypress and Caloosahatchee and Picayune and Panther Refuge, is getting this water beyond the trail. Inflows, and we match outflows.
Right, so I think if you look at this water year, you just start looking down these 4 numbers right there, they're all pretty much in the same ballpark. That's the Central Everglades water moving from the lake down into the park, 1.4, 1.5, 1.7, 1.5. So for this particular water year, there's been, as you said, inflows and outflows. They're all right in alignment with one another of water moving south.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You know, and we're going to be able to control that even better as we complete the Tamiami Trail and the Blue Shanty. And I don't know how we're coming in regards to west of the L-28. I know we're modeling the trail and Loop Road to be able to receive that southwest flow. How are we coming on that, Drew?
So I got briefed a couple weeks ago on Loop Road and 11 Mile Road. We're in design. We're going towards final design, and hopefully within the next year be able to break ground on those culverts. Obviously, culverts on US 41 are a little more complicated with all the activity along there. So we're in the early stages of design and for US 41, because we need to work with the tribe and DOT to make sure that it's constructible and in the right location and all those types of things. So we're out of the modeling. We're more into the design of the construction at this point.
Well, that'll be a huge benefit on moving water southwest into Lossman Slough. You'll get the full benefit of the 3 additional culverts that we're putting in the L-28, along with the condition-based operations of the S-12s and the 343A and B. When you look at the 60-40 split, that would be about 1 million acre-feet on the west side that would be unrestricted by gravity, southwest, western side of Shark River Slough, rehydrate Lossman Slough, deliver by gravity to the 10,000 Islands natural flows. That's going to be a great day when that happens. And as I had said earlier, if we can, I don't want to say prioritize because every project's important, but accelerate the Blue Shanty to achieve that 1.5 million acre-feet on the east side. That is our science that we started with 25 years ago. And so I think we're heading in the right direction, and I'm very proud of all of our staff working on these things and continuing to understand the road's going to be done March or May of next year. And I want to continue to work with you, Drew, with our federal partners, the Park Service, the Department of Interior, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to make sure that there's, once the road's finished, any other barriers that would not allow us to let water flow by gravity, that we address them. So
yeah, then speaking of, the southern portion of the system, just looking at the conservation areas here in the upper right-hand side, you can see water conservation area has been coming down with that drier weather, a little bit of rainfall directly over it a couple weeks ago, but for the most part, it's been coasting down, not a whole lot of water moving out of Area 1. Primarily, the outflows right now are coming from S39 down the Hillsborough Canal. We're making deliveries into Service Area 1 for water supply. out of Area 1. It's very small flows on the order of just over 100 cubic feet per second. Jumping down, looking here at Area 2, you can see it's got a pretty decent recession going on right here. One thing I'll draw everyone's attention to is this sort of tan line on the regulation schedule. That's the water supply floor for Water Conservation Area 2. I know we've talked in the past during board meetings about the topography across Area 2, and that the upper end up here in this corner is a lot higher than the southern portions of it. So we often wind up in a situation where there's ponding or higher water levels in the ridges and sloughs down here in the southern end, but the northern end is dry and crispy. So that's a thing that we're evaluating in the SEP 1.0 process on how to revisit the regulation schedule for Area 2. But for the time being, this is the current regulation schedule. We've got a pretty decent recession going on, and we're gliding back down towards regulation, which then takes us over to Area 3. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see it's just kind of been coasting along. We're continuing to deliver the Tamiami Trail flow formula there at about 796 cubic feet per second. But it's continuing its recession as we try to bring additional water, as I've already touched on, coming in from the north. The other thing that I'll point out for everyone is, as we get over here to the South Dade conveyance system with the drier weather that we've been experiencing, that system has also been drying up. I think if I'm not mistaken, just earlier this week, the Corps of Engineers closed S12C. So S12D is still open, and of course, we're continuing to deliver water through the 333 structures into Everglades National Park in accordance with the flow formula. But the water that we had been pulling down from L30, right there at 335, to be able to supply the South Dade conveyance system and keep some of those pump stations running, 332D, S199, and S200, that water is pretty much dried up. So we have terminated operations at 199 and 200, and 332D is probably cycling on and off intermittently throughout the day as the South Dade conveyance system continues to dry up. Should that trend continue for an extended period of time, then we will be looking at importing water and bringing water down to maintain canal levels in the South Dade conveyance system to prevent saltwater intrusion and protect some of the well fields that are down around Homestead. With that, Lawrence?
Before you leave that area, I think it's important to understand that to have a dry season every now and then is the only way you can cleanse a wetland. And I haven't seen one in Area 2 for a long time. And I think it's important that we understand that a dry season, a wet season is so important. You know, it's a very sensitive balance. And I know you're trying to balance water supply as well. So as we continue to go forward, I think it's important that the established water levels that are compatible with the environment, all of God's landscaping, all the wildlife, we can learn from the past. We can go back to 1982 in the Mercy Kill, where we drowned probably 50% of all the fur-bearing animals. We can go back to 1994, and then we drowned 98% in the Central Everglades. So I think we're doing a good job, but I think we definitely have to look at Area 2. I know we've discussed this quite a bit. We're talking about changing the water levels that were established to be compatible. I'm not sure whether you're talking about water levels that are higher or lower, but understand that we have to look at the total food chain, not just the birds. Of course, a wading bird ain't got a 3-foot leg. And I'd like to understand the water levels that we have established in 2A 2B, 3A, 3B, I'd like to understand that high water mark or that water level, what is the depth? Because we know from the past, anything over 2 feet in those sloughs, more than 60 to 90 days is devastating to the wildlife. We know that. And even God's landscaping. I remember in 1994, every myrtle bush growing in the sawgrass ridges, which is about 6 inches higher than the slough depth, everyone died. Now, they grew back. It's kind of amazing how nature recovers. But that water was 3 feet deep for nearly 2 years. And it was total devastation to the environment and the wildlife. So I think we're heading in the right direction, but we need to establish what that is and try to adhere to the water levels that's compatible to the full food chain, whether it's birds or deer.
Absolutely, Mr. Bergeron. Actually,
you know what I mean?
I think you just gave Lawrence his final action item that he's got to deliver before April 2nd.
Okay, well, we'll keep working on it, okay? Thank you.
Well, let's go and look at Everglades water depths, and you see over the past 3 months, things have really begun to dry down, especially at the top end of Water Conservation Area 3A and the top end of Water Conservation Area 2A. So, Mr. Bergeron, I think this might be your dry season where Water Conservation Area 2A is going to dry down. Our concern, though, when we do have dry down like this, of course, is it getting too dry and having fires start, and fires will go and they will take that soil that took centuries to accrete and take it away very rapidly. And these are our shallowest peat soils. Yeah, the cracking and aeration is great, but we just don't want to lose too much of it.
Yeah.
And then we go down into the bottom and then the southern end of Water Conservation Area 3A, where it was ponded just 2 months ago. You see that is absent. And if we could actually see down in the bottom part of it, you would see that, oh, we can up at the top, great. So John has talked about, I'll get that to the next slide, but so we still have where we are currently, and it'll probably start to change pretty rapidly. There is still connectivity in Lossman's and Shark River Slough and Taylor Slough, though that connectivity is starting to decrease. These tables are really...
Go back to that
Sure.
chart.
Absolutely.
You take like the Big Cypress.
Yes, sir.
Which is a rain-driven system. It's a pocketed system. It's 50% uplands, 50% wetlands, and if you look at a satellite aerial, every pocket of wetlands and cypress domes is 360 degrees surrounded by pine islands and oak heads. It's not sloughs that run 100 miles long from, it's a pocketed rain-driven system. And it operates that way for millions of years. And we have a nice dry season going on in the Big Cypress because it's a rain-driven system. And that soil can crack and aerate, and the silt that forms underwater can oxidize and dissipate, and then here comes the rains. And as we go forward, I think it's important that we recognize the difference between the Big Cypress Preserve and the River of Grass. Recognize that it's actually the cleanest water in the whole Everglades region because it is a rain-driven system as we continue to go forward with Everglades restoration.
Absolutely.
So we're getting a real good cleansing, which will turn around in the next 60 days from one extreme to the other, but that's why you have up to 230 panthers running around and 2,000 bears and things are pretty good in the Big Cypress. And we have to make sure that we recognize that.
Yes, sir. Moving on to these next two tables, these are really good in that they show what, in the left-hand side, that's the recession rate. And you see the fastest recession that's happening currently within Water Conservation Area 2A, 2B, and the southern end of Water Conservation Area 3. So that's where water is really starting to come down. And depths over on the other side, where our shallowest depths are currently is up here at the northern part of Water Conservation Area 3A. So how that all plays into some of the ecology, we're looking at the central part of Water Conservation Area 3A. We have the Alley North colony. We've talked about this quite a lot. It's one of the largest wading bird colonies in the United States when it's going strong. And what we look for here is we want to be at 9.5 feet on March 15th. We have data that shows if you're not at 9.5 at that period of time, that nesting is depressed. And if you are at it or higher, then you're going to have a good or a decent nesting season. And so currently, we are on trajectory to get to that 9.5, which is awesome. But this area around it has dried down pretty incredibly. So I think we're going to have nesting here, and what the birds are going to have to do is just fly a little farther for food. So we think that we're going to have an average nesting year at the Alley North colony. Looking a little further south in Water Conservation Area 3A, where the wood storks are nesting, we have another scenario where we want to be at about 1.5 feet at the beginning of March and declining down to 1/2 foot in June. And that's the optimal recession rate would go through this box for wood storks. And we see we're only going to have a sliver of that. So we have some pretty good nesting, 350 nests or so more in this area of the Everglades. And these are wood storks. They have the longest nesting period of all of the wading birds there. And the difference in them is they are a fish prey species. So if things totally dry up, their fish prey is gone. So what we're seeing is that these nests that have already been started, we're hoping that there is enough water for those young to actually fledge. So the young may come out, but if conditions become bad, parents will abandon their nest in order to have a reproductive season the next year. So we'll keep coming back, somebody will, and update you on how these different colonies are doing.
Well, you're about 6 inches higher in 2. Can't you move some of that water on the?
Yeah, one of the tough things of that is you look at the size of Water Conservation Area 2 relative to the size of Water Conservation Area 3A, and then the distance that it would need to go down to the bottom, and the volume, I don't think, and John could correct me, I don't think that volume is there.
Well, it would help some. One's 6 inches higher than schedule, and one's 6 inches lower than schedule. So wouldn't hurt to move some of that water.
We will take that into account.
Okay.
Looking at Biscayne Bay salinity, Maricruz, there's orange and blue lines up there that show where we are, and that's about about 30 PSU. When restoration occurs and is finalized here, we're looking to get down into the mesohaline zone, which is 5 to 18. So we're above that currently, but we're not really concerned for hypersalinity at this point in time, which is up here. And, oh, that just happened, sorry. Moving on to the next slide, and I think this is my last slide. Looking at Taylor Slough stages and Florida Bay salinity. I'm leaving, and no one's going to razz her anymore. I mean, come on.
That'll last me through the year.
Good, I got it. Awesome. John talked about what was going on with the Miami-Dade conveyance system and how it's moving water down here. This red dashed line, this red solid line up here is stage at the Taylor Slough Bridge. And you see that is coming down to almost zero now, and it's because we don't have that water. But we look at what salinity is like in the eastern, the central, and the western bay, and salinity conditions are really fantastic for this dry of a period, because I showed the connectivity that was still there between Shark River Slough and Taylor Slough. That water has still been making its way down there. We're in the interquartile range currently for each one of these parts of the bay, which is fantastic. We've talked about in the past about keeping the sponge wet. So as John talks about being able to bring water down there and at least convey it, if it's not going all the way into Florida Bay, at least it's going to keep those wetlands in between the bay and the watershed moist, so that when we do get rainfall again, you don't have to fill that up before moving water down into the bay. So Florida Bay is looking fantastic.
So looking at the looking at the groundwater conditions throughout the district, you can see for the most part over here along the.
Before you move on, when we get the blue shanty done and we establish that 60% of 2.5 million acre feet, is that going to certainly help Taylor Slough and to have that hydration?
Absolutely, because once you get a high enough stage, there's going to be connectivity over land and between Shark River Slough and Taylor Slough, but it's only going to happen when water levels are high. And we have a study going on currently, which is the GEM study, where we're really looking at the hydrology on that part of the system. If you remember 6 years ago, I came to you the first time and I said, oh, Florida Bay is a completely rain-driven system. And that was incorrect. It was correct for the dry season. When you have a very, very dry season, it's very much more related to what happening with rainfall. But during the wet season, and especially in very wet years, there is interplay there. And we're trying to determine what the level of interplay there is. And we all know that the eastern and the central are much more tied to what is coming off the landscape than the western. So this is information that Fred Sklar's group is working on. It's a fantastic study. It should be done in a couple of years, but it's giving us a much better understanding of what's the groundwater exchange there, what are we going to do, how does that all interplay to make sure that our operations are able to provide the need for salinity in Florida Bay.
Well, and you're certainly moving more water on that eastern side when you reach the point that we could raise the L29. I'm thinking we're up to 8.5 for a certain time frame. And we got the seepage wall in, which was cutting off the flow till we did that. So I think we're certainly getting more water on that east side now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So looking at that groundwater along the lower East Coast, it seems it's all in good place for this time of year. We're continuing to keep an eye, as we've talked about over here in Cape Coral, on the ongoing groundwater situation in the aquifer over there. Looking at the Climate Prediction Center and what the forecast may show, I already talked about it a little bit earlier in the presentation. Still looking for that below normal rainfall through May, and then you get into the transition when you bring in the month of June to equal chances. Right now, at least for the first part of the wet season, in that June to August window, Climate Prediction Center is looking for a slightly above average rainfall for South Florida in the first part of the wet season. Being that we are in the heart of the dry season, I thought I'd bring this graphic back that shows sort of the intensifying drought activity across the district. You can see right in there, Palm Beach County, you're getting into that D2 level for a drought index throughout the state, but this just gives you an overall idea of the drought severity for the entire state of Florida. Looking out over the next 2 weeks for local conditions, we're pretty much forecasting below average or below normal rainfall for both weeks 1 and week 2. There's a little front that maybe moves in late weekend into Monday of next week, but we'll see if anything really develops from that, or whether it, like the other ones, stalls out just north of Lake Okeechobee. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to Lawrence for any parting shots.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to take a minute. There was an outpouring of thanks today that I just have heartfelt gratitude for. Governing board members, thank you. It has been an honor to talk and teach science. It's my jam. It's what I love. I've just enjoyed all the interaction that I've had with y'all over the years, and I hope it's been helpful. And to Drew and to Jen and John, just thank you for your vote of confidence in me to run water resources. It's definitely been my dream job. It's where I wanted to get in my career, and I was able to do it. The district, and I say a career, I've grown up here. You know, this is my only job. It's been absolutely incredible. I met my wife here. We had all of our baby showers in the storage room. And you saw I have quite a lot of kids. So it's just been, it's been just incredible. It's been a family. To the leadership team, it's been a pleasure to work with y'all. It's just we have the brightest folks here. We have really tough things we have to tackle. And the minds that come together to work on that and the positive can-do attitude is fantastic. And I wanted to thank my leadership team, Cassandra, Stewart, and Mark, and Lourdes, my admin, who keeps me, you know, straight and narrow. They're awesome. I mean, they're just incredible. Their can-do, their ability to work, they are the ones that are running the ship. I just man the tiller and try to, you know, keep it going in the right direction, and they've been absolutely fantastic. You might notice I'm wearing 2 lapel pins today. This second one is a Rotary Paul Harris Fellow pin that was given to me by my dad. He was a Rotarian, and he thought that I, you know, kind of showcased the 4 tenets of Rotary, and it was very important for me to have him here with me today. As I was growing up in the district, there became a point where I was thinking, do I stay as a scientist or do I go the management route? And he was awesome. We would have conversations on the drive home. Dad, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know, and he never told me what to do, but he let me talk through it. And we got to a point where I was like, Dad, I'm a good scientist, but I think I'm a much better manager. And he's like, go that route. And it's been awesome. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I would just say to any young person that is working at the district now, I started at the lowest possible level you could come in as a scientist here. I was a contract scientist, fired at will at any time for anything. And I still am. When you get to the top, that happens too. You sank a couple airboats, didn't get fired. But the district is such an incredible place to work. You have so much opportunity here. You don't have to stay in one track. There's people that move around. It's really, the sky's the limit when you work here at the district. And I'm thankful for my time here. It's been absolutely incredible. And I'm glad that I'll still be in the state and be able to come back and hopefully be at the podium and talk to you about TMDLs. So just thank you so much.
Have we voted yet to let him leave? Huh? No, you've been a true role model for all of us, and we're going to stay in contact. You've been a very big part of making Florida the best state in the United States of America. And you're a true role model for all of us, I can tell you. We're going to miss you, but we're going to stay in contact, and God bless you, your family, and with good health and happiness in your career.
Thank you. Then I guess I'll end with long live the Everglades and God bless America.
Yeah. And the American dream is still alive.
All true. Thanks, Mr. Glenn. Thanks, Mr. Mitnick. Ms. Smith. Follow that.
I would be happy to end on Lawrence's farewell. So we'll make a very brief financial report. The financial statement in your packet is through the month of January of 2025. Just a few brief highlights. We've collected $659 million in new revenue through the month of January, and we've expended $332 million. In comparison to January this year versus last January, we've collected $228 million and expended $71 million more than the previous year. Of the 659 million in revenue collections, mainly comprised of 320 million from state appropriated funds, mostly for Everglades restoration, and 319 million from ad valorem. The remaining 20.8 million is from investment earnings, licenses, permits, fees, leases, sale of district property, and then self-insurance. So we've expended and obligated 50% of the budget. That's all I have for you.
Any questions or comments from Ms. Smith? Thanks. Molly, is there any general public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a hand raised on Zoom. Suzanne Martin. Ms. Martin, please unmute your mic. Ms. Martin.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
So my name is Suzanne Martin. I am with Anglers for Lake Okeechobee, and today I am speaking on behalf of my husband, Scott Martin, who can't be with us today. First and foremost, I want to thank the board for its commitment to helping fix Lake Okeechobee. I know that this is a very complicated issue and every decision affects many people. The recovery mode is in full effect, and I hope that we can keep this going strong because we are going to need every single day we can of the lake being low to have any chance at real SAV and emergent grass progress. The current levels aren't low enough at all to have any chance of sunlight stimulating the grass to resprout. Unfortunately, unlike in years past, the water clarity now is extremely muddy and clouded. So I believe we aren't going to get any recovery of SAV until we get it down to the 11s, more of the 11 feet, for more than 90 days. The real concern is that we need to plan for a very slow rise when we get into the rainy season. Otherwise, we will instantly kill off the progress we hopefully have. So I ask that you consider keeping the lake in recovery mode for another year if possible. We can make a huge, meaningful difference if we can keep this going. We don't need much, but we do need more time. We are also begging for a reoccurring budget for Lake Okeechobee projects that focus on work inside the lake. We are once again missing out on the opportunity to do some very meaningful work inside the lake, scraping, planting, dredging, and cutting open the historic water flow areas so the lake can breathe. Millions are spent all around the lake on projects. This lake deserves some of that money too. One very important thing we need to start is a special hydrilla project on the lake. Hydrilla can fix many issues quickly, and it is very hardly. We all know that hydrilla isn't a native grass, but every biologist knows that the benefits for Lake Okeechobee would be huge. The last thing is that we have to stop spraying chemicals. We have to stop spraying in our waterways and lakes. We are destroying the bottom. I thank you for letting me speak on behalf of him today.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment.
Thanks. I'll go to board members for your final comments. Mr. Bergeron.
It's been a great meeting. It's an honor to sit with my fellow board members. Just want to thank the staff for everything, and I look forward to us moving forward with Everglades restoration. I think, Drew, we need to see how we can approach the task force with our state partners, FWC, DEP, the Corps, the Interior, the Park Service, to make sure that we accelerate the Blue Shanty. And the day that 2.5 million acre feet is flowing south, because that's all we hear, move water south. The day we reach that, and we're not far from it, that water never goes in a reservoir. It's never stored. That's the compatible volume of water for the environment. And it's going to be a great day, and I think we're getting very close to that. And look forward to us continuing that letting that happen. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Butler.
No further comments, sir.
Thanks. Vice Chair Wagner.
Likewise, no further comments.
Thanks, Mr. Martinez.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Meads. Colonel Roman.
I have one thing, Mr. Chair. For Cheryl, I'm sending you good thoughts for next week, and I look forward to seeing you at next month's governing board meeting. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Steinley, are you still on? I'm not sure you are. No. No comments from Mr. Steinley. Great. Thanks. We'll go ahead and wrap up. Lawrence isn't the only one leaving the district, which I'm sad to say. Our deputy district clerk is also leaving, Wildad Solomon. She's been great to work with, and I wish her the absolute best, as I think we all do up here. They're all going to be missed. The SFER open house is taking place in the lobby from 1 to 3, so that was perfectly timed. We'll be back here next month, and then in May, we're going to be down in Miami-Dade, so please pay attention to the sfwmd.gov /calendar to make sure you know where we're going to be. And this meeting's adjourned for today. Thank you.